Welcome, everyone, to Mondays with Michael. So good to be with you. Welcome to all, wherever you are, to our podcast on natural health and health freedom. And we are delighted to have you with us. We're streaming to several different platforms today live. So, whatever platform you're on, if you'd like to type in the comments or the chat, and you can let us know who you are, where you're calling from, anything you'd like to share with the group. If you're joining us on our Zoom link or on our watch page, you can feel free to ask questions of our guests today. We love to hear from you. And anything you have to share about our subjects today that you've come across since we were together last week. So wonderful to be together. I'm Dr. Michael Gaeta, your host. This is our 6th anniversary show. It was either last week or this week, but it's our 6th anniversary for the show that began March 18th, 2020. And we are so glad you're with us today. So I'm just super delighted to have the two guests we have with us today. I'm going to introduce our first guest now, but for those of you who are just joining us for the first time, this is an offering of the Gaeta Institute for Holistic Health Education. And our motto here, as with the Gaeta Clinic for Chinese and Functional Medicine, is nature first, drugs last. And it's going to be one of our topics today. The pharmaceuticals are not bad, they're just massively overused, and there is a natural solution, I would estimate at least 95% of the time. So this weekly live show is aimed to help co-create with you this new culture that is emerging of nature first, drugs last. So a warm welcome to show number 308 for this March 23rd, 2026. Really honored to have two very highly renowned guests with us today. I'm going to introduce to you our first guest, Dr. Edmund Kwan, and we're going to be talking about how microcirculation is evolving healthcare, the sad state of modern medicine, and a bit on a very important health subject, which some of you may be aware of chronic inflammation. Later on in the show, we're going to be rejoined by a regular guest, Dr. Clinton Ohlers, and he's going to be talking about refuting the claim that COVID shots do not alter the human blood, which they do, and we're going to be talking about that a bit towards the end of the show. So, as always, if you're on our watch page or in our Zoom chat, don't be shy. Just put any questions you have or anything you have to share to introduce yourself, anything you've come across, links, articles, videos, anything related to our subjects of natural health and health freedom is very welcome, and we'll cover as many questions as we can. So I am really delighted to introduce, first time on the show, a fellow New Yorker. As some of you know, that's where I grew up. My first 40 years of life was in New York City, and before moving out here to Colorado. And really delighted to be introducing to you a wonderful man. New York City-based Dr. Edmund Kwan is among the most experienced plastic and reconstructive surgeons. Board certified by the American Board of Plastic Surgery. He's a member of the American Society of Plastic Surgeons, a graduate of Georgetown University Medical School, one of the top medical schools in the country. Dr. Kwan completed his plastic surgery residency and fellowship at Cornell New York Presbyterian Hospital and Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. He also trained in hand surgery at the prestigious Hospital for Special Surgery, also in Manhattan. When I practiced in New York, that's where I would send patients to who needed any type of orthopedic work. And he also completed craniofacial trauma training at Johns Hopkins Shock Trauma Center in Baltimore, treating patients who had sustained complex facial fractures from injury. He is an attending surgeon at New York Presbyterian Hospital. Dr. Kwan continues to pass his expertise and knowledge on to the next generation, as he is a clinical assistant professor of plastic surgery at the New York Medical College and Cornell University Medical College. Dr. Kwan is also a popular seminar and conference speaker and the author of one of my favorite books these days, Let It Flow. This is his wonderful book I'm going to recommend to all of you. This is a great book, and this is a practical guide that explores the role that healthy circulation plays in skin and overall health. And I'll put the link in the chat for you, but simply go to Dr. Edmund Kwan, KWAN.com. So, whatever platform you're listening to us on, please let's give a warm Mondays with Michael welcome to Dr. Edmund Kwan. Edmund, thanks so much for being here today. Thanks for joining us and taking the time. And it looks like we've got to get your video back. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Okay.
Great. A warm welcome.
Oh, thank you very much, Michael. It's really a pleasure being here. And as you and I have just chatted recently,
yes.
Really, health has become really my passion. Although I'm a plastic surgeon by trade,
yes,
this right here, this on health and what constitutes health and disease has become really my life passion.
Yeah, please tell us about that. Okay, you know, what we when we sent out the notice of the show, we said from surgery to circulation, just to come up with an interesting title. Just tell us a little bit about your journey of how you went from, you know, and you still are a conventional surgeon doing a range of work there in New York, and how you've evolved your thinking related to the current state of modern medicine and this very vital area of circulation?
Well, you know, really my journey starts when I was a medical student, and we were all taught about disease states and then how to treat these diseases with medicine and surgery. That's where it all began. And then I thought that this was basically what we had to do. And then with time, I went into sort of surgery, had a full surgical training, and I treated a lot of very sick patients, learned a lot about medicine, conventional medicine, and then I specialized in plastic surgery. And then when I started my practice, I was all consumed in plastic surgery. Plastic surgery, for those who don't know, is both encompasses cosmetic surgery and reconstruction, which means patients who have breast cancer defects, head and neck defects after cancer, or auto accidents, or patients with major facial fractures or hand injury. So this is all encompassed under plastic surgery. And we would do the surgery called microsurgery. Most people are not aware that plastic surgeons are true microsurgeons. Okay. Not the microcirculation we're talking about, not to that small degree, but microsurgery meaning that these blood vessels are so small in diameter that we need a microscope. So they're not, and the reason why we use microsurgery is it's called free tissue transfer, where we take one tissue from one part of the body, like a leg, like a stomach, bring it to the leg, and where there's a big defect, we would connect the blood vessels, both the artery and the veins, sometimes in the nerve, and fill in the defect. So we could do these distant sort of reconstruction from where the donor site is. So that microsurgery has to be done under microscope, and they're fairly small vessels, but obviously they're still visible to the eye. So this is not microcirculation microsurgery, but fairly small blood vessels. Wow. So anyway, I was doing many of these surgeries.
And you suture those with the microscope?
Yes, we suture. We have now couplers where we're able to use this special coupling device where we could just put one end and the other end and kind of put it together without even stitching. Okay. So yeah, there's some advances that are made, and it's usually very successful. And we could basically move around any tissue from any part of the body and fill in any defects. So if you have a defect in the breast, the neck, distal extremity, we could literally take tissue from, usually the donor site would be the abdomen or the latissimus dorsi on the side of the back, or any other tissue in the forearm. We could actually get the artery and the vein, dissect it out, take it, detach it, and then put it where we want to and connect the vessel, and we could cover the defect. And then we could save the limb, or we could reconstruct that area and make that area nicer and actually functional, even functional surgery. So anyway, this is what I was doing. I kind of gravitated more recently into doing more cosmetic surgery, as many of us do. But about 15 years ago, one of my patients I was just humming along. I thought I was, oh, this is great. This is what I'm going to do. And then one of my patients brought in a book called The China Study. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but
I am.
Dr. T. Colin Campbell, as you know, he's a PhD in nutrition out of Cornell, and he wrote this book based on his epidemiological study that he did in China, rural China. So this was a major undertaking. He took hundreds of thousands of Chinese in rural China. This would have costed so incredible amount of money in America, but he was able to do it in China for a fraction. And basically, in his book, he talks about what the rural Chinese do and compare that to the Americans. Basically, the rural Chinese, as he said, are inflicted with basically diseases, and those diseases like infectious disease, and those diseases that are related to like sanitary conditions. However, the rural Chinese do not develop what he called disease of the affluence, which are cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and cancer. And he called these three diseases the disease of the affluence. And the Chinese did not get these diseases, or rarely got these diseases. So he was looking at what they were doing. He said, well, they're human beings like us. What are they doing differently? What are they? And he realized that the food, basically the food that they ate, and these people are not taking medicines. They're not doing gym exercises. They're not doing any of these things like the Americans, but they are eating, in general, pretty much whole food diet. They're not eating a lot of processed food because they're not available in rural China. And out of necessity, they're moving a lot. They're active because there are not cars, so they're either walking or bicycling. So this is what the rural Chinese were doing. And with that, with the combination of that, and mind you, no pharmaceutical, essentially no pharmaceutical medication, right? Or surgical stuff. So there's no modern medicine, but these folks were not getting basically diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. And so
they had kind of acute conditions, but like perhaps infectious disease, maybe, but no chronic disease that we see commonly.
No chronic diseases, and obviously he's related this to basically what they ate, mostly what they ate, but what they did with their lives as well, keeping their bodies active. And there was no real pharmaceutical or surgical intervention for these patients.
Interesting.
Although maybe they do need, some of them will need it here and there, but by and large, these rural Chinese were fairly healthy and devoid of these kind of diseases. So, and that got me started. That got me thinking. I said, wow, I was told that cholesterol was evil, that you can't eat anything that had cholesterol in it. I was told that, I was not told that all this food, that the importance of whole food diet. I always knew back of my mind that being active played into some health. But I was really, honestly, even being a physician with all these training, I was completely oblivious to how important what we put in our mouths was. Really. I completely neglected it. And honestly, I took the words of basically the so-called the experts out there, the experts telling us what's good and what's not, right? They're the ones setting the nutritional guidelines for America, and basically I said, you know what? At the end of the day, food is food. Really, food is the same, and that's what I thought for a long time. But then this book sort of got me on this journey, and then I said then, you know what? Maybe I'll do a little digging of my own. Maybe I'll look into the literature. Like you, as you said, you started reading a lot of literature. Obviously, in the literature, it's fraught with a lot of literatures that are kind of, as you know, they're all in on this sort of the mainstream sort of research, where it's an echo chamber of the same stuff. Cholesterol's bad, and everybody jumps on that. However, in between the literatures, as you know, there are some good stuff in there, and these are good scientific studies that are done. And I dug in and I looked around, and I kept on coming to the same theme. That is the importance of oxygen and blood flow. That kind of kept on coming up. That the cell really needed oxygen and blood flow. And really and the more I dug, the more I realized. And then I said, you know what, maybe I'll write a book. I didn't intend to write a book, but then I said, maybe I need to put this down on paper.
Oh, good for you. I'm really glad you did.
Yeah, and I started writing the book, and I wanted to write this book sort of so that lay people could understand it and read it.
Yes.
Because really, as you know, to navigate the scientific data and all this, the medical people, they change their recommendation every other day, as you know. So you don't know. One day this is good, one day that's not, as you know, and it's all based on whatever they almost feel like telling people. So I had to have really a real logical reason why certain things are good and the way we have to eat and way we have conduct ourselves sort of in navigating. So anyway, I wrote this book, and in the book, it's really, as you know, it's all about the blood flow.
Yes.
It's all about the blood flow. And so the title of the book, I decided to make it Let It Flow.
Great title.
And as I said, the blood flow is the true fountain of youth.
I love that.
In it, as I was exploring, I was looking at it, and it's how really, as you know, the circulatory system. The circulatory system is this amazing system that goes around in a circle. And most people may still not understand it, but for 1400 years from the days of Greek, from Roman days, Galen, this person named Galen, was a physiologist in the Greek, and he was actually the physician to Marcus Aurelius. His idea of basically the blood was made in the liver, which is not true, was shunted out to the cells, and the blood got rancid after a while. And only way to take care of that rancid blood was to let bloodletting, or make an incision and let the blood out. And for following 1400 years and more, and physicians would prescribe bloodletting, and the patients would go to a barber and actually get their blood taken out. And as you see on the barber, the red, white, and blue represents red, the arterial blood, blue, the vein blood, and the white, the rag that they needed to wipe off the blood, basically. They were doing that and then along came William Harvey, a British physician, who realized, after doing research and doing dissection, William Harvey realized that really the blood wasn't made in the liver. It goes around in a circle. The heart pumps the blood out, and it pumps out through a blood vessel called arteries. Arteries are the blood vessels that are going to the cells, going to the tissues, so away from the heart. So it's under pressure. They have a thicker wall, and the blood is pumped out to the cells and the organs and cells, so the cells will receive oxygen. And then through veins, it comes right back to the heart again, and it starts the journey over and over again on a typical human being, about 70 times a minute, right?
Yeah.
And so Harvey, though William Harvey, as brilliant as he was, he couldn't quite connect the arteries and the veins, and he didn't know what the connection was between arteries and veins, because these are called sort of the microcirculation, or the capillaries.
And so here's a William Harvey quote for you. This is loading up now. Let's get this up.
And they moved to he was a brilliant, and he was actually called a heretic and a fraud in his days, and he because he basically started something new, right? An idea that was there for 1400 years. 1400 years. He came along and said, no, that's wrong. This is what happened, right? This is what happened.
That's right. Well, I'm just going to read a short quote from him. This is Dr. William Harvey, the year 1628, British physician, noted as the father of cardiology, motion. He observed the motion of the cardiac chambers and the circulation of blood. He wrote the book on the motion of the heart and blood. Beautiful quote. It almost reads like Chinese medicine. The heart is the beginning of life, the sun of the microcosm, for it is the heart by whose virtue and pulse the blood is moved, perfected, made apt to nourish, and preserved from corruption and coagulation. It is the household divinity which, while discharging its function, nourishes, cherishes, quickens the whole body, and is indeed the foundation of life, the source of all action.
Amazing, amazing. I mean,
Indeed.
so Harvey really, I think, woke us up. Although many physicians in his days didn't believe or trust him.
Okay, I was not aware of that.
30 years later, an Italian physiologist named Marcello Malpighi, with the invented microscope, was able to actually identify the capillaries.
And so when was that?
That was in 1670.
Oh, wow.
1650, 1650 something, in the 1650s. Okay. About 1660, about 30 years later. So along came Marcello Malpighi, and he finally connected the full circulatory system. So now the artery gets connected, and although they discovered this capillaries, they weren't sure what the function of it was. They were not sure what the function. They knew that the blood ran around in circles, circulated in this beautiful circulatory system, but they did not really know the function.
Okay.
And as you know, the capillaries are generally about 5 to 10 microns. That's 1 millionth of a meter wide. Very small. So that's why Harvey couldn't identify it. But this is very, very small. And the reason why it's small is, and 5 to 10 microns, red blood cell, RBC, your typical red blood cell is about 7 to 8 microns.
Yep.
So you can see this is almost the size of the red blood cell. And the red blood cell, when it transits through the capillaries, it literally fits just in, through the capillaries.
Single file, yeah.
There's a reason for that. As it's traveling, as you know, as you talked about in your course, as it's traveling, it's dumping off oxygen and nutrients and hormones, and then it receives the carbon dioxide and waste products from the cells, right?
Yes.
And so also the capillaries are also moving through this system a little bit slower through the system as it's doing this. And what is it doing? It's delivering oxygen and nutrients and hormones, but really oxygen. And oxygen is really, as we know, is the sustaining sort of element of life. And why is the circulatory system so important, and why is this delivering oxygen so important? Well, as you know, oxygen is utilized by the mitochondria in the cell. And for those of you who don't know, mitochondria is the powerhouse of our cell, meaning that it generates energy. And we call this energy, in the scientific term, ATP. It generates units of energy called ATP. So oxygen is needed to make this energy in the mitochondria. So when you have glucose, when you have nutrients that go into the mitochondria in form of glucose, combine that through the cycle, you end up with 36 units of energy. 36 units of about approximately 36 units of energy, and oxygen at the end of that cycle acts as an electron acceptor. So oxygen, it's an electron is generated, and you must have an electron acceptor at the end in order for that cycle to continue. So oxygen is an electron acceptor in the respiratory chain, in respiration. So, however, our body, our cells have the ability to make energy without oxygen. This is where it becomes interesting. As you know, there are different theories of why this is happening, but as you know, certain bacteria utilize this method only. This is called anaerobic glycolysis, or simply glycolysis, meaning making energy without using mitochondria. And however, the problem with that is, and our body can do that as well. Our cells, all mammalian cells, have the ability to make energy both with and without oxygen. However, when it makes energy without oxygen, instead of making 36 units, it only makes 2.
That's right.
Only for the same amount of energy unit.
Yes.
So you get one glucose molecule, you end up making 1/16 to 1/18 less energy.
Right.
So obviously we don't want to do that. We don't want to waste.
Right.
We want our system wanted to be efficient. In
Yes.
addition to that, though, with this aerobic glycolysis, anaerobic, it also produces a toxic metabolic waste called lactic acid.
Hmm.
We all know about lactic acidosis. It's a toxin. We don't like that. We do have some lactic acid buildup, but we have to get rid of it quickly. And if there's too much lactic acid buildup in our body, we could die of lactic acidosis, as you know. And when you do a fast run, that pain that you're feeling, because we're generating that energy, because it's quick, that energy is glycolysis. That glycolysis produces lactic acid, and the pain is that lactic acid in the muscle cells. So we do utilize that method. However, it's at a steep cost, much less energy, and the production byproduct of lactic acid, which is not good. However, so that's really the function of the whole circulatory system, getting down into to the cellular level and making essentially optimizing energy production.
Right.
Energy production. But so if that's enough, so if the whole system is functioning well, then we utilize our respiratory cycle, use the mitochondria, and we could produce nice amounts of energy.
Yes.
However, there's a process that occurs called inflammation. Inflammation. This is what we should talk about next. Inflammation. As you know, inflammation, and you know, most of my medical colleagues with medical degrees, they don't know what inflammation is. If you ask them, well, you know what, it's something gets hot, something gets warm, it gets swollen. That's inflammation. But they don't really understand truly the essence, and most lay people have no idea what inflammation is. I mean, a small idea. Maybe they say, oh, doesn't it get swollen? It gets a little red. So they're confused. But as you know, inflammation is simply an immune response. It's an immunologic response by our body to something that entered our body. Foreign invader, whether it's a bacteria, virus, parasite, or a toxin. So it's responding. It's responding to this foreign sort of object that enters our body. So that it has to mount a response, otherwise our cells will be overwhelmed and die. So it has to mount and neutralize that foreign invader, and that's called acute inflammation. We call that acute. It's occurring right away, and it's taking care of the problem right away. And if you see someone with acute inflammation, let's say if you see it on the skin level, you see that it's puffy, it's swollen, it's red, and it's painful. So all those things are happening. Why are they happening? Because our body is opening up the blood vessel, it's vasodilating. Why? To bring in all the products of inflammation to heal that area, because there's something there, whether it's a bacteria, or there's injury, or there's something there. So it's trying to heal and neutralize that area. So the area gets swollen, it gets puffy, and it gets red because increased blood flow. This is very important now. Red because increased blood flow. So acute inflammation is associated with increased blood flow. But that process, as you know, is usually over in 48 to 72 hours. It's usually neutralized and it's done. And the swelling starts going down, the redness goes away, and it gets better. But the next step, so that's acute inflammation. I think more people understand acute inflammation. They associate that with like an infection or something like that. So they understand that a little bit better. But chronic inflammation, no idea. Have no idea. Chronic inflammation, and this is what's really important. Chronic inflammation is when this acute inflammation somehow doesn't resolve and stays around. That's one of the ways you could get chronic inflammation. So it's a leftover from this acute inflammatory process. We've neutralized the virus, bacteria, something, but it's the virus didn't die. Like in hepatitis, for instance. We have acute hepatitis where it attacks the liver cell, and you end up with this inflammation, and it's painful, and all that happens. But then when that resolves, the virus, guess what? It does not disappear from our body. It lives in the liver cell. So now that begins the chronic hepatitis or chronic inflammation. You don't know that it's there. However, blood tests will show that you have this antibody and that this virus is living inside your liver cell. And guess what that's doing? That's damaging your liver cells. We don't even know. And that's called chronic inflammation.
Yeah.
And why do we do it? Why do we have chronic inflammation? Well, chronic inflammation not only occurs from acute inflammation, but toxins as well, and chemicals, all that stuff. So anything that enters our body that our body has a hard time recognizing, it mounts an immune response, maybe not to the level of acute inflammation. However, it does need to mount some sort of a response to take care of it. So it's taking care of it by, so what does it do during chronic inflammation? Well, the body, unlike acute inflammation where there's swelling and all that, chronic inflammation actually causes diminished blood flow, reduced blood flow, not increased blood flow, diminished blood flow. Why is there diminished blood flow? Because the chronic inflammation does damage to the microcirculation. So the microcirculation, so you don't see chronic inflammation necessarily in the bigger vessels per se, macro vessels. You will see them though. You do see them in the behind the scene, but you may not see it. So in the vascular system, you will see these things in the microcirculation aspect of it. The capillaries and the very small arterioles and venules, they're the smallest of the vessels. There you will see the destruction. Those blood vessels get damaged, not only scarred, they get thrombosis, it gets plugged up, and the whole sort of capillary matrix gets destroyed and disrupted. So as a result, you don't deliver the oxygen and nutrients to the cell. You don't deliver the oxygen. So the cells, when you look at as you were saying, when you look at the big blood vessels, it looks open, but the cells are not receiving the oxygen. And I make this analogy. I look at capillaries like this. If you were to drive home, to get to home, you have to drive on a highway. I call that arteries. And to get to your home, you have to go on a secondary road. Those are arterioles. But in order to get to your house, you have to go into the driveway. But you get to your house, driveway's got a huge hole, huge cavern, and you can't get in the driveway. So you drove all the way home now, but you can't get in the house. That's sort of what's happening with this microcirculation problem. It gets to there, but it does not make the final journey to the cell because the microcirculation, these microcirculation that you see depicted here is damaged. And the cells, what happens to cells? They become what we call hypoxic or low in oxygen. So they're in a low oxygen state. And even the bigger vessels, Michael, if you look at the walls of the big blood vessels, the arteries, they don't look like they may be damaged inside. On the walls of it, it's damaged. And that's what's causing the plaques. It's the microcirculation that feeds the blood, because the blood vessels themselves need blood flow. People have a hard time understanding this. Blood vessels themselves need to be fed with oxygen nutrients. And it does it through what we call vasovasorum. It's a blood vessel to the blood vessel.
Right.
And also the oxygen and nutrients go through the lumen to perfuse the blood vessel. And the blood vessel wall is thick. Arteries are thick. The veins are very thick. Arteries thick, veins thin. And as you know, the capillaries are super thin. In fact, almost one cell thick.
Right.
But the arteries are thick. So the thick blood vessel, and the thicker the blood vessel, more oxygen it needs. So even the big arteries take a hit, and that's the origin. That's the origin of atherosclerosis, not elevated cholesterol. Right. Not elevated cholesterol. Not elevated cholesterol. The origin of atherosclerotic plaque is damage to the what we call the media. That's the middle layer of the blood vessel, and that makes up the majority share of an artery. And guess what that media is mostly made of? Muscle. Vascular, smooth muscle. So the vascular smooth muscle is very thick. That's what allows the blood artery to be flexible and allows it to contract and relax. But that needs oxygen as well. And the vascular smooth muscle, guess what? Doesn't get the oxygen if there's chronic inflammation. When the vascular smooth muscle cells don't get oxygen, there's damage to the vascular smooth muscle cells. That starts the whole atherosclerotic cycle. Now, cholesterol is involved in the sense that it's utilized in the repair mechanism. So it's part of the repair mechanism, not the origin of the...
It's the firefighter, not causing the fire.
So the whole idea about elevated LDL is causing plaque is complete nonsense. And they know it. The scientific evidence is overwhelming. It's due to, again, as you said, microcirculation problem to the blood vessel. Microcirculation. And those cells now cannot make energy. And what happens is when it does that, and this is, again, I think this is the next step. What's important is when the cells are faced with hypoxia, lack of oxygen, it has to try to do something. Our body is incredibly smart. We're dumb. Our body's incredibly smart. So we think, you see, we think we're smart and body's dumb. No, body's incredibly smart. A lot smarter than us. So body knows what it needs to do. So when they're in trouble, when the cells are in trouble, body mobilizes this mechanism, and every cell, every mammalian cell is equipped with what we call an oxygen sensor. So it needs to identify when those cells are low in oxygen. It needs to tell the body, oh, we're low in oxygen. So it needs a signaling pathway. So that oxygen sensor is called the hypoxia inducible factor, HIF. HIF, it's called. I don't know if you've heard of it. Many people have not. Hypoxia inducible factor is an incredibly important protein complex that exists in our body. It controls over 2% of our genes. That's how important it is. It controls over 2% of our genes, and perhaps even up to 10%. And the reason why it's that important is because when the cells are low in oxygen, it's going to die. So it needs a mechanism to tell the DNA, listen, we got to do something. So what it does is the hypoxia inducible factor, when it becomes activated, it becomes activated when there's low oxygen. So there's low oxygen, you take away the oxygen, then it becomes activated. When it becomes activated, guess what it does? It goes to the DNA. It binds to the DNA and tells the DNA, you got to stop doing what you're doing, do something else. So the DNA, so we call this a transcription factor, meaning that it actually tells the messaging. It literally affects the way the DNA behaves. So what the DNA now does, shuts off the mitochondria, starts making energy, guess what? Without oxygen. It makes energy now without oxygen. It enters a glycolysis. So it no longer uses mitochondria. It uses no mitochondria. It has to, why? Because there's no oxygen. So it's making that. So it's making energy. It also does a bunch of things that, another important thing, it reprograms the whole cell, by the way. But another thing that it does is it tells those tissues, we need to make new blood vessels. New blood vessels. Why? Because we're low in oxygen. You know, if we make new blood vessels, more blood is going to come. More blood flow is going to come in. So it makes new blood vessels. And it's called vascular endothelial growth factor, VEGF. So HIF, the discovery of HIF back in 1994 by a group, mostly at Hopkins. It was a pediatric pediatric oncologist at Hopkins. His name is Greg Semenza. Along with him and two other fellow, one from Harvard and one from Oxford. The three of them won a Nobel Prize in 2018 for the basic discovery and elucidation of hypoxia-inducible factor in 2018 in medicine and physiology. So in 2018, they won a Nobel Prize in medicine and physiology for the discovery and the elucidation, basically, and the function, identifying the function of hypoxia-inducible factor. It is that important, hypoxia-inducible factor. It is incredibly important. So hypoxia-inducible factor, as I said, along with cellular reprogramming, now the cells are making energy without oxygen. Cells also start making all these new blood vessels in response to it. The problem with, though, there's a big problem. There's a big problem. Problem is, in the presence of chronic inflammation, it's a knee-jerk response by our body because there's low oxygen. It makes new blood vessels, but guess what those new blood vessels are? They're no good, terrible. They're dysfunctional, and it's called pathological angiogenesis. Now, why does the body make pathological angiogenesis then? Well, what that mechanism, the whole angiogenesis is put into is when we're growing during our childhood, from infancy to adulthood, we're growing. During the process of growing, we need ample amounts of angiogenesis because the cells are growing, our body's growing. So it serves a function, it serves a function. Plus, when you have wounds, when we sustain wounds, we need angiogenesis.
Right.
Plus, women during the menstruation, their uterus needs angiogenesis. Angiogenesis is vital for survival. And in fact, when our heart takes an injury, sustains an injury, it needs angiogenesis. But these angiogenesis, guess what they are? It's called physiologic angiogenesis. Physiologic, meaning the blood vessels that are formed during this cycle is called physiologic. They're functional. They bring more blood flow. The blood vessels are what we call hierarchical in nature, meaning that blood vessels, if you look at it, it's like we call it vascular tree network. It starts with big vessels, smaller, 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 in this kind of a sort of very orderly fashion. That's how the blood vessels are laid. However, that's called physiologic angiogenesis. Pathologic angiogenesis does not follow any of this rule. It just forms randomly. It's got dilation. It's got holes in it. It's got retrograde flow. So pathologic angiogenesis is completely dysfunctional and no good. Guess who makes all these pathologic angiogenesis? All the chronic diseases. All the chronic disease tissues have pathologic angiogenesis. And so the microcirculation is completely shot in pathologic angiogenesis. So all the chronic disease, and that, Michael, includes cancer. Includes cancer.
Yes, that's huge.
And they all have what we call pathologic, and the medical community, again, are very confused about this. Very confused about this pathologic. They think that physiologic angiogenesis is same as pathologic. Angiogenesis. No, they're very, you know that they're very bright people out there, but they're confused. If you look at the literature, I read the literature, I know they're confused because they don't distinguish the two. And they keep saying that cancer cells have angiogenesis to bring in more oxygen, more blood vessels. That's wrong. Cancer cells have pathologic angiogenesis. Although they have a lot of new blood vessels, it doesn't bring any oxygen, more oxygen to the cancer cell. And you know what? Cancer cells don't want any oxygen. Guess what oxygen will do to the cancer cell? It will kill it. It will kill it. So cancer cells do not want any oxygen to come in. In fact, they do everything they can to stay hypoxic, lack of oxygen as they can.
So then, what is the neoangiogenesis of a cancerous tumor? If it's not there to provide oxygen, it's there to provide nutrition?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, you see, angiogenesis is simply in response to, what did I tell you? Low oxygen. That's the trigger for angiogenesis. So in a cancer cell, there are lots of spots that are very low in oxygen. So that is triggering the angiogenesis. And this pathologic angiogenesis that it makes, and they keep saying, you've heard of this, growing tumor outgrows its blood supply because it can't it can't compete with the amount of oxygen it needs. That's complete nonsensical. Complete nonsensical. And I talk about that in my new article. Complete nonsensical. Cancer cells, in fact, Michael, cancer cells, even when there is oxygen, they prefer not to use oxygen. And the age-old question was, why do cancer cells do this? Because they're making a lot less energy.
Yes. Yes.
The reason why cancer cell does this is it gives them an evolutionary advantage. It's an adaptive advantage. Why? Because it creates, although they're making a lot less energy. However, what do they need if they're going to make less energy from the same sugar molecule? What do they need then? They need a lot more sugar. Guess what? Cancer devours sugar at an incredible rate. You know that, right?
Yes, because it's very inefficient. There's your PET scan.
There's a scan called PET scan that identifies and tags blood sugar and injects it into your body, and where it accumulates is where the cancer is. Yeah. Because cancer cells are highly metabolic. It wants to consume large amounts of sugar. Why? Because
it's inefficient.
Very inefficient. However, with all this sugar, it's keeping up with its energy demand, basically, because it's sucking up all that sugar molecule, sugar. Right. And even if you don't give sugar, it utilizes another amino acid called glutamine. It's like a sugar, so believe me, cancer cells are well fed, even though they have pathologic angiogenesis. However, guess what they don't have? They don't have oxygen. Yes. But it's an advantage.
And this is and Dr. Kwan just published this in Frontiers in Cell and Developmental Biology, his hypoxic adaptation theory of cancer, which echoes some of the work we present in our cancer course on Otto Warburg's work on the metabolic aspects of cancer. This is a brand new paper. We have a link to it for you in the chat and on our watch page. I'd really encourage you. It's a fascinating paper and very leading edge.
And as you know, you talked about Otto Warburg. Otto Warburg was a great physiologist back in the 20s and 30s. Sure. He won Nobel. He was a Nobel laureate at the time, Hitler, Germany, and he won a Nobel Prize for his work on respiration, Otto Warburg. And Otto Warburg would have won a Nobel Prize had it not been for Hitler, Germany. But Otto Warburg basically said that cancer cells don't seem to use oxygen. They're very they're hypoxic and they don't seem to utilize oxygen. And his assumption, which was not right, he said that Otto Warburg was a brilliant man, incredible brilliant man. But he said that the reason why cancer cells don't utilize oxygen is because their mitochondria is damaged. That is not true. We've shown that that's not true necessarily. However, his other works are incredibly brilliant because at the time he didn't have the resources and the technology at the time. But we know that that's not true. In the cancer cells, the mitochondria are functioning, but but even though they're functioning, the cancer cell chooses not to use it. Not to use it. And we call that today the Warburg effect. So Otto Warburg gets credit. It's called the Warburg effect. As you know, it's when the cell doesn't utilize oxygen even when it's present to make energy.
Interesting.
Does not utilize oxygen to make energy even when it's available. And even our normal cells do this. We do this because I believe we do this. Our normal cells do this because guess what? Using this process called glycolysis rather than respiration, although it makes a lot less energy units, it's much faster. 10 to 20 times faster. So it makes the energy much, much quicker.
So wait a minute, Edmund. I want to clarify something here. This is significant. So you're saying because Warburg's so this is the Warburg's theory and the folks who have picked up on his work more recently, Tom Seyfried. So I just want to make sure, because what you're saying is very significant, because they're saying, and I want you to clarify this, because I want to make sure I understand this, because this is an important subject. They're saying, and this is Seyfried basically saying, cancer is a mitochondrial disease that then leads to genetic damage. So please explain again why this is not so.
I think I read Dr. Seyfried. I think he's a brilliant guy as well. But the cancer cells do not have damaged mitochondria.
Oh wow!
Damaged mitochondria. Okay. And in fact,
that's
if you look at our normal cells with perfectly normal mitochondria,
right?
It doesn't utilize. At times it doesn't utilize mitochondria to make energy either. So there is, what are those cells usually? Fast proliferating cells. proliferating cells. So cells that are really multiplying fast. And that doesn't only occur in cancer cells. It occurs when muscle grows. It occurs when there are situations when we need cells to multiply quickly without being cancerous or anything that's damaging, malignant, right?
Right.
Yes, cancer cells multiply quickly, but we have in our system cells that need to multiply quickly. And again, there are
like a bone marrow, hair follicles, gut
but there are theories out there why even our normal cells don't utilize mitochondria to make energy. And as I said, one of the leading theory is the two things. One is that it needs energy quickly. Number two, the byproduct of that byproduct of breaking down with lactic acid and all that is utilized for biomass accumulation. In other words, to make more other cells. So you need those as a substrate. So there are a number of theories out there. These are like the leading theories out there. However, as you know, our cells, normal cells generally don't want to do that because, as I said, the byproduct is lactic acid. Lactic acid is toxic to our cells. We have to neutralize it very quickly. Cancer cells, on the other hand, use this as an advantage because lactic acid means that there's acidic environment. I think you will hear in the literature that cancer cells exist in this acidic milieu, this acidic.
Well, they create the acidity,
Yeah, by making energy through glycolysis because they're producing lactic acid. So lactic acid and this acidic environment is a very big advantage for cancer cells over our cells. So when it does that, it actually builds a little barrier. Our cells are toxic. Our cells, this is toxic to our cells, but to cancer cells, they're perfectly, and we call this tumor microenvironment, TME. Tumor microenvironment is acidic, and it gives the cancer cells a big advantage. Our immune cells don't do well in that kind of environment. Guess where our immune cells don't do well in hypoxic environment? It doesn't do well in acidic environment. So cancer cells utilize all this. Remember, cancer cells, people have a confusion about this. Cancer cells are our cells that went rogue. It mutated. There's even a question about this mutation thing, and it's talked about in my article. There's even a question whether you need a mutation at all to become cancer. Yes. Wow. So that's something that's been proven recently that you epigenetically, and this is the next sort of I think the frontier for your audience. Epigenetic is going to become huge. For those of you who don't understand, epigenetic is this whole scientific field that's been in existence for some time now, 20 plus years. Epigenetics. It's been around since the 1930s, actually, 1935. Conrad Waddington sort of discussed this. It's basically, it's how the environment is impacting our DNA. So epigenetics is literally, we all thought that we were born with a set of genes. We're born with a set of genes, and those genes are fixed. There's nothing you can do about it, right? We're either blessed or screwed, or most of us, we have a decent set of genes that are just really static. However, that is proving to be very incorrect. Incorrect. And the reason why it's incorrect is not because they're getting mutated during our lifetime, but the reason why there is a change in our genes is because of what we call epigenetics. Environmental factors, any environmental factors you and I discussed, toxins, viruses, all these things basically makes the environment of the cells, alters the environment of the cells. When the cellular environment changes, it has to do something. It has to do something. Because cells just don't want to live in an environment that is hostile to them. And I'm telling you that the main reason why the hostility in the environment is due to low oxygen. There are other factors, but it's mainly low oxygen. So when a cell yes.
So Sedman, just to review, so the cancer, it's not genetic damage that precedes, I'm sorry, it's not
Genetic mutation.
It's not mitochondrial damage that's
No,
causing the genetic
no,
mutation.
no.
And in some cases, there may not be a genetic mutation.
Yes, that's
But
right.
so what's going on in the cancer cell that's
I
causing that?
believe, as I outlined in my article, is that that our cells, the normal cells, are living in this environment. As the environment becomes more hostile, mostly, what is the hostility? The main reason for the hostile environment is low oxygen. And the reason, as I've already outlined, low oxygen means that it's struggling to make energy, and it's got to change the way the DNA functions, right? So it goes to the DNA. Now the DNA says, all right, it tells the DNA, make energy without oxygen, make these new blood vessels, do all these things. So it's giving DNA a new set of instructions when the oxygen runs low. So, and when the cells are faced with that, guess what it does? It changes. Cells change their what the cells look like. And this is called cellular plasticity.
Oh, right.
Cellular, that's in my first article.
And that's the other article. Let me get that to people.
Yeah, cellular plasticity. So what happens is the cells change their cell type. And we know this. It undergoes changes. And one of the first changes the cells undergo, the first changes cells undergo is it replicates itself. It replicates itself. And it's called hyperplasia. It makes a lot of copies of itself. And you see this in pathology. In the first steps, like when you see, like you see in what we call chronic benign, the benign prostatic hyperplasia.
Yes.
BPH that many men get. That's those cells are multiplying. They're exact same copies of itself. It's making more copies of itself. And it's dealing with that because they believe, some of the theories believe, why are cells becoming hyperplastic, meaning why are they multiplying? Well, they're multiplying because there's lack of oxygen. It's a response to lack of oxygen. It doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know what to do with the byproduct. So by multiplying, it mops up some of the toxic byproducts and make new cells. So that's one of the theories. So the first step it does is it's called hyperplasia.
Yes.
And then if you lead the cell to that environment, further hostility, it makes this next level change called metaplasia. In other words, it actually changes its cell type. Do you know that every cell in our body, whether it's a hair cell or nose cell or liver cell, it has the identical same genetic information. But obviously, it's coding for liver cells, it's coding for skin cells, eye cells, and so forth, right? So what is that information? I had the same. It's just within the DNA.
Right.
It's telling the cells make a big different cell. So cells start making different cells. It becomes a different cell. So like in diabetes, for instance, we all know what diabetes is when we consume tons of sugar and our insulin level starts going up, and we become what we call insulin resistant, right? One of the most common afflictions in America.
Yes.
Basically, in diabetes, what's happening, again, most endocrinologists don't know what I'm about to tell you. I'm not sure why. They should study it, back and study it. In diabetes, I'm talking about now type 2 non-insulin dependent diabetes. Type 2 diabetes. They're type 1 and type 1. Type 2. Type 1 is when
lack of insulin.
Your beta cells are gone, whether it's genetically or whether it was destroyed. So your beta cell in the islet of Langerhans, they're gone. So only way to deal with that is pancreatic transplant. But aside from that, most of us who develop diabetes is the type 2 diabetes. Meaning the type 2 diabetes occurs because we consume tons of sugar, and sugar doesn't come in form of candy. It comes in form of bread, rice, and all this other stuff, pasta, all these other stuff that we don't think about, right? So we're consuming large amounts of sugar. There's only one way that our body can deal with elevated sugar in our bloodstream, and that is with insulin. It's got to release insulin. And if you don't have insulin, that sugar just remains there. And the reason why all of our cells are built in with insulin receptors. The cells will not receive the sugar, glucose. It'll not receive the glucose unless the insulin docks on the insulin receptor.
Right.
And then the cell opens up, and then the sugar will go in, and then the cells will utilize that sugar to make energy. It won't do that if the insulin is not up. So what happens is when we consume lots of sugar, then pancreas has to do what? Has to produce more insulin. So it pumps out more insulin and insulin. So the insulin level starts going up and up in your body. Right. After a while, the cells, even though insulin level is sky high, says, we're not opening up. We're full. We're done. We're not opening up no matter what amount of insulin, and that's called insulin resistance. So the cells are refusing to open up even though there's insulin. Right. So it stopped. So that insulin resistance, the way the traditional medical people are treating that is just giving more higher and higher doses of insulin, insulin producing medications. Sure. However, what we need to do is we need to get rid of the insulin resistance. And one of the best way to get rid of insulin resistance is stop eating sugar. It's very simple. Or increase our activity. Right. Burn up the sugar. Burn up the sugar. So we got to get rid of that sugar in our bloodstream, one way or the other. Obviously, if we exercise, the sugar levels will go down in our bloodstream if we become more active. Right. Or if we put less sugar in our bloodstream, then the sugar level will start going down. And guess what happens to insulin? Then insulin will become more sensitive. Cells will then become more sensitive, right? As the sugar level drops. Right. But with some of these modern medication, it just telling the pancreas to produce more and more levels of insulin. And that really is toxic to our body. Elevated insulin is not good. Although Ozempic has its good things, its long-term use of Ozempic is really toxic to your body. People are going to find that out eventually. And so that's not the way to do it. Really, more than that, you need to do other things. And there is one medication that I do plug for. And it's a medication, but it's a physiologic medication. It's called metformin. Oh, metformin, sure. Heard of it? Metformin has been around for many years, 70 plus years, and it's one of the most commonly prescribed medications for diabetes. Metformin, you see, increases insulin sensitivity. It does opposite of what all the other does. It's derived from French lilac. It's more of a naturally existing compound, and it does not go to the pancreas and tell pancreas to produce more insulin. It does not do that. It goes to the muscles and tells the muscles to open up, and it tells the liver to make less sugar. So metformin is much more physiologic. If you need to take a medication, and as you know, metformin has been linked to longevity and all this other stuff, for life and all this. And there are good studies to show that metformin versus other diabetic medication, metformin comes out 10 years plus longer than other diabetic medication. In fact, people who take metformin outlive people without diabetes. So I mean, there's a lot of these sort of studies out there. They're trying to do right now metformin a prospective study, meaning that study going forward. And they're trying to right now generates this fund. They need $100 to $200 million to do this study, a prospective study. There's not a lot of impetus for it because pharmaceuticals make no money on it. It can make people healthier, so they have no impetus for this. They want to obviously sell more expensive drugs. Yeah, for sure. Or more expensive drugs, right? So this is not in line with their thing. And this is an age-old medication that patent has run out a long, long time ago. But metformin is called glucophage. It's sugar loving. Basically, it mops up sugar. So metformin, if you were to tell me what medication, so there are some medications that are, I believe, decent, and they work more physiologically. Obviously, in general, if you don't need to be on medication, I try to not take any medication in general. I do take a small metformin just as a prophylactically. Whether people want to do that or not, I talk about that in my book a little bit. However, so the diabetes, though, just to go back to diabetes, what's happening in diabetes is where the cellular plasticity comes into play is in diabetes as the insulin, the beta cells are tasked with making so much insulin, they run out of it. They can't do it anymore. Guess what they do? They recruit other cells. Liver cells become a beta cell and starts producing insulin. Think about it.
Gallbladder,
Liver cells and all the cells in the pancreas that don't produce insulin starts producing insulin, becomes a beta cell. And that's what's happening in early stages of diabetes. And this is still in the early stages. And then what happens is, after a while, there's so much sugar in the system, they all burn out, and all these revert back. And then that's called metaplasia, where literally liver cell becomes a beta cell, pancreatic beta cell. Think about that. Nobody imagined this 30 years ago that this is possible. But liver cell, because it has all the same genetic information as the beta cells do, right? Liver cells. So basically,
so is it this? So you're saying it's the cellular environment, because all the genes are in all the cells.
It's right. It's a cellular environment thing. So you're asking me what is happening at the diabetic level? The cells are becoming very hypoxic, hypoxic, and hypoxia plays a huge role in microcirculation. As you know, diabetes, and I term it in my book. Diabetes is the ultimate disease of the circulatory system. In other words, diabetes touches every aspect, every blood vessel in our body. That includes the brain, the eye, the liver, the kidney, everything. So that's why the diabetics will end up getting foot amputations. They'll go blind. They'll develop cardiovascular disease, and they'll go blind.
It's all vascular issues, neuropathy.
It's affecting the microcirculation of all these areas. And they'll get Alzheimer's quicker. Increased Alzheimer's, by the way, and all the neurodegenerative.
Well, what you're saying is huge, that the cause of a lot of these issues, including cancer, is poor oxygenation of the tissue. So I just want to play a short video of stagnant compared to optimized blood flow. And just so folks know what they're looking at, you're looking at an arteriole here. And this is the arteriole that branches off into this thing, which Dr. Kwan talked about. This is a capillary, where the actual exchange of nutrients and oxygen and draining waste and CO2 happens. And so what you're going to see on the left here is a healthy 37-year-old male who's just very stressed. And stress, as Dr. Kwan pointed out, it constricts microcirculation dramatically. And then you'll see optimized blood flow after a short treatment with the Beamer PEMF. So you'll see on the left here, very stagnant blood, just struggling to get through that arteriole and capillary. This is intravital microscopy, which is live blood flow at a microvascular level. And then 8 minutes later, you see on the right, that blood flow has been restored to what it should be in a healthy, athletic 37-year-old. And this is what the Beamer does to blood flow. It optimizes microvascular blood flow, oxygen delivery to the cells, thereby optimizing cancer resistance, which is what Dr. Kwan is talking about, and also helping address these vascular issues related to diabetes and other problems. But this is what happens in 8 minutes, and it's a lasting effect. It's not just for a few minutes. It lasts for many hours and possibly over a day, but at least 12 to 18 hours of effect. So this is quite an amazing revelation here, Edmund, that you're sharing with us.
No, I think these non-invasive ones like Beamer, I've looked at that. Basically, they're called PEMF, right? Pulsed electromagnetic.
I'm sorry. What was that again?
PEMF. They call it PEMF. Pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, which Beamer is one of them, and I think these have a benefit because it affects specifically the microcirculation, and I think you'll see going forward there's going to be a lot more concentration on restoring the microcirculation, and one of the best way to do that is to fix our microcirculatory system. To stop the inflammation, chronic inflammation, use of some of these non-invasive devices, and even oxygen, by the way. This is the next level thing. Oxygen can actually restore. And I'm not talking about people going out and just inhaling high concentration of oxygen, because that's gonna have toxic effect. That's not the solution. That's not the because if you have a decent set of lungs, which if you have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, then you need oxygen. But most of us who have two good functioning lungs, we don't need that, because at room air, most of our red blood cell with hemoglobin, it's already fully occupied with oxygen. It's saturated. You'll see that. You do a finger probe, you'll see 98, 99% saturated on room air. Room air has 20% oxygen. That's all we need, really. We don't need any more, because you start pumping in too much oxygen and breathing too much oxygen, introduce it that way, you're going to end up causing toxicity as well. However,
what's your opinion, Edmund, about hyperbaric oxygen then?
Hyperbaric oxygen has its benefits. Hyperbaric, clearly there are numerous studies out there, including hyperbaric oxygen therapy, including it's basically used for bends clinically. Patients who are diving and they come up too fast, and then they end up suffering from a lack of oxygen, and because their body is really deficient in oxygen. So by using this hyperbaric oxygen therapy, you could save people's life. But it's right now clinically it's used in a lot of the burn and wound centers. Wound centers where patients have diabetic wounds, or smokers, or people with cardiovascular disease that end up with these wounds that are not healing. And studies clearly show that hyperbaric oxygen therapy heals these wounds. Problem is, one, you have to sit inside these hyperbaric oxygen tanks, and it's not a pleasant experience. You have to go in often, 3 times a week, in a claustrophobic area, and you're under high pressure oxygen that's at 100%. So as I already talked about, there is toxicity of oxygen. Although it's going to help the wound, it's going to end up damaging other parts of your body, like your throat, like your esophagus, like your larynx, like your trachea, like the lung. So it can damage all those areas due to remember, our body, evolutionary wise, has never been exposed to too much oxygen. When have our body, evolutionary wise, been exposed to too much oxygen? Pretty much never. So we don't have a mechanism to deal with too much oxygen. We have a mechanism to deal with low oxygen, not high oxygen. So that's a major issue. So you don't want to pump it. However, so my next thing is, I believe we need to get a device, a system that is going to introduce more oxygen into our cells. And this is, I think, the next I believe is going to be the next frontier. It's way of delivering oxygen to your cells through what we call oxygen microbubbles. I speak very briefly in my new article, and even in my first article, about oxygen microbubbles.
Interesting. I want to hear about that. I just want to show folks this photo. This is what Dr. Kwan is talking about, the blood oxygen saturation. And this was mine, it was 88%, which is kind of low. Ideally be 97 to 100%. 95 to 96 is borderline, 94% and below is low. And as a result, my heart rate went up because the blood oxygen was low. That's an adaptive change. And then I just sat on the thing I'm sitting on now, which is this seat cushion, basically, called the V-Sit, that delivers the beamer signal, which is really the only device in the PEMF world that focuses on microcirculation. And then 20 minutes later, the O2 sats went up to 93. And as a result, then the heart rate was able to slow down because there was a lot more oxygen in the blood. So this is, a very common finding, specifically with this device. Most other PEMF devices are not focused on microcirculation. This one is, and that's one of the reasons I use it so much with patients, is that it just is dramatic.
The one they use, Michael, the one they use is the beamer.
Yeah, that's the only one that actually has.
That's the one that has, I think, a lot of scientific data.
69 studies, yeah.
Yeah, so that's it's really scientific, good stuff out there.
So what's this microbubble thing?
So my next really frontier, and this is what I'm going to be sort of writing about and researching, is oxygen microbubble. You see, oxygen microbubble, it's been around. It's been around. What happens is when you do an ultrasound study, or when you do a CAT scan, they use a contrast material. And the reason why they inject this contrast material is this contrast material is these called microbubbles. They inject it into it, and it'll contrast, because it's air, it'll contrast with your soft tissue. And so it'll better elucidate the soft tissue. That's why they use contrast, and you hear about that contrast. And it's been done with ultrasound as well. But so it was, I think, an accidental discovery. It contains air. Air still has 20% oxygen, right? So these were kind of filled with air. And then they realized, hey, those cells that we injected, those cells are actually, oxygenation is going up in those cells. So I think that's an accidental recovery. So they now develop these oxygen microbubbles where they fill it with 100% oxygen, 100% oxygen. It's a bubble. It's a bubble because it's a size that's about 1/10. It's about 1/10 or even 1/100 the size of a red blood cell. You can make it. It's very easily made. You can make it easily, and the outer shell has to be permeable to oxygen. So outer shell is usually made out of lipid, but it could be made out of protein. It could be made out of even polymer. So I think polymer is going to be the wave of the future, but we'll have to see.
Sure.
But lipid so it's made out of lipid. It travels sort of inner through your body. It doesn't cause too much oxygen injury. Inner it travels. And then at the cellular level, where there's low oxygen, the oxygen from this bubble will diffuse right across the membrane into the low and restore oxygen level. When you do that, when you restore oxygen to low oxygen area, number one, we talked about this earlier, hypoxia inducible factor, which was elevated, that caused this whole metabolic change in our body, this metabolic reprogramming, that stops. That stopped. So pathologic angiogenesis stops. So, and then you restore the good blood vessels. So restoring oxygen, actually, we restore physiologic angiogenesis and restore blood flow and oxygen, and especially in the microcirculation. I'm talking really about microcirculation. It'll restore the microcirculation. So in the microcirculatory system, I believe delivering oxygen safely to that area, I think is going to be part of the answer. And they have some preliminary studies where they coupled chemotherapy and radiation therapy with oxygen microbubble, and those patients ended up responding much better to it. Much better to it. So oxygen therapy is clearly it works. Even as we talked about in hyperbaric oxygen therapy, where they're using oxygen therapy really works even in hyperbaric. For patients who have erectile dysfunction or depression, they have clear studies showing that erectile dysfunction markedly improves. And that's a microvascular disease, by the way. Erectile dysfunction, for those of whom you don't know, erectile dysfunction, the cause of it is microvascular dysfunction. They call it endothelial dysfunction, but the problem is at the microvascular level. So using hyperbaric oxygen therapy, it actually fixes those microcirculation, really. So really, but as I said, hyperbaric oxygen therapy has expense, it has cumbersome, and it's kind of difficult to use, and there's some toxicity associated with it. Whereas I believe microbubbles will be, I'm not trying to sell this microbubble. It's not really, this is not patented. Anybody could make these things, microbubbles. It's going to be out there. It's going to be incredibly cheap, as long as we don't let the pharmaceutical get hold of it. It's going to be expensive. It should be available almost like a supplement. So my goal is to have a stable form of oxygen microbubble, because the oxygen microbubble inside of this membrane has the propensity to kind of diffuse out, to open air or into aqueous solution. So I think we need to be able to freeze dry this stuff. We need to be able to capture this and then take it as a pill form. Right now it's mostly intravenous, but we need to make it into a pill form. I believe though oxygen will be part of the answer in treating cancer and chronic diseases. And obviously everything we're doing, as you know, Michael, everything we're doing, whether from the beamer therapy to exercise and eating a food diet, all this is about is restoring the microcirculation.
Yes, for sure.
And so this will be another really, I believe, incredibly valuable tool that if we could get it to the market, that I think it's going to really help patients. And it's a sort of like the beamer, it's a freebie. It's a freebie, meaning that you don't have to necessarily get out of your couch to get the benefit.
Well, this is a home
everything has a cost.
Yes.
I mean, when people say, "Oh, I have to now eat healthy," they think it's like a death sentence, or "Oh, I have to actually exercise a little bit." It's a death sentence. But as you know, like Beamer, it's a freebie. As oxygen microbubble, I believe, is like a freebie for the people, and I believe that it's going to have really a benefit effect. And again, all this ties back to microcirculation.
It sure does.
It's not going to only. It's not only going to, so as we talked about earlier, cardiovascular disease and atherosclerotic plaque, it's a microcirculatory problem. So this can go there, and if you can fix the microvessels there, guess what? You're going to reverse plaques. Reverse plaques. Think about that. We're going to actually reverse plaque.
Yep, that's what I've been seeing in practice. Optimizing the microcirculation. We have calcium scores going down, blood pressure coming down. All kinds of things.
Well, calcium, just to finish off on the calcium.
Yeah.
You know that calcium, that's calcification that's occurring in the coronary arteries?
Yes.
That is due to cellular plasticity of the vascular smooth muscle cells. So the people think that calcium is made by the body, by the bone. No. Where is the calcium coming from? It's coming from vascular smooth muscle cells when it's under duress, meaning when it's hypoxic. It becomes a calcium-making cell. We call it osteochondrogenic cell. So vascular smooth muscle cell starts producing calcium.
Oh, okay.
That's where the calcification comes. The collagen comes from the vascular smooth muscle cell. Wow. The foam cells you hear about comes from the vascular smooth muscle cell. I believe that the calcification, purpose of calcification, I believe, is due to there's imminent danger of perforation, because the blood vessel wall is going to develop. I believe calcification is to fortify the blood vessel wall so it will not develop a big hole. Wow. That's what I believe it is.
That's huge.
Yes. I think that's what calcification is. And obviously, body is doing it for a purpose. And remember this, everything the body does, there's a purpose.
Right, right.
And it's smart, a lot smarter than us. And people just believe, oh, body's stupid. Why is it doing this? Why does it do chronic inflammation? Why does it put plaques down? It's doing all these things because plaque is putting a patch. Calcification is making that tube impenetrable. I believe the body does this, and it has a explicit purpose.
So that Agatston score of the coronary calcium score is that calcium is coming from the smooth muscle cells. The cardiac smooth muscle
cellular plasticity of the smooth muscle cells.
That's massive.
That's in my first. It's in my latest article too. You can read that.
That's huge.
Coming from that, and it's amazing what our cells will resort to. Under duress, Michael, our cells will go to all extent, and including. It'll become cancer if it has to. It'll become cancer if it has to. To escape death.
Wow.
That's what I'm saying.
That's incredible. And this is a study that this was the where did it go? This was the study that just got published about a year and a half ago on exactly what Dr. Kwan's talking about, of erectile dysfunction this is MS patients related to microcirculation. And this is a study done in Saudi Arabia, published in Journal of Clinical Medicine. And this is a triple-blind randomized trial using the Beamer. And what happened, the Beamer improved erectile function, sexual satisfaction, and reduced fatigue. There's your oxygen delivery after just 3 weeks of intervention. So this really supports what Dr. Kwan is talking about, that this is a microcirculatory issue. This was not a low testosterone issue. It was although the testosterone, by the way, has to be delivered by the microcirculation as well as the oxygen and nutrients.
So the easy treatment is everybody goes to TRT, testosterone replacement therapy.
Yes.
You got to restore the microcirculation, as you know, not testosterone replacement.
Right.
The testosterone, as you know, replacement has a lot of complications, a lot of side effects, and people have really problems with it. So we got to restore it naturally, and we have to resort back. We got to go back. As I say, our body is an incredibly complex and consistent machinery. We just have to read the manual.
Wow.
Just have to read the manual. Read
So
the manual.
just to finish, I know you've got to get back to patients. This is Dr. Kwan's website, Dr. Edmund Kwan .com, and his clinic is in New York, and he is a plastic and reconstructive surgeon in New York, right near where I grew up in Queens, as well as other locations throughout New York. He's in Flushing and New Jersey and Manhattan. And then this is his very important book, which I really encourage everybody to get a copy of, which is his book, Let It Flow. We have the link for you in the chat. I love this book, and I love the subtitle, Blood Flow is the True Fountain of Youth. Very important. This is very leading edge. This is so far from managing symptoms with medications, but getting to the causes of human illness and also health by optimizing microcirculation and blood flow. Edmund, any final thoughts to feel complete for today?
Yeah, no, I think, our body is so extraordinary. The more I learn about it, the less I feel like I know.
Mm.
And our body has this process called homeostasis, for those of you who know. And this homeostasis is trying to get our body, keeping our body in this constant equilibrium state.
That's right.
And then, as this French, I think he was a philosopher, or maybe he was a scientist, La Chatelier, his name is Le Chatelier, and it's called Le Chatelier's principle. Le Chatelier's principle. He basically says, in a closed system of any system, you add a perturbation, that system will set a new equilibrium. It'll adjust to set a new equilibrium. That's what our body is doing. Our body is this closed system. You add perturbation, which is you add toxins or these toxins from outside.
Right.
Our body has to readjust to accommodate for that toxin. So it sets a new equilibrium. And that new equilibrium is called disease.
Amazing.
So we have to bring that equilibrium back, take away the toxin, and it'll go back to the old equilibrium, which is disease.
That's excellent. And I just had a question. We had a couple of questions for you. Do you need to scoot, or do you want to take a question or two?
No. I'll be glad to take on any questions.
Okay, great. Let's see. This is a comment. A question from Paula. Doesn't acute inflammation occur with a soft tissue tear? Does the inflammation encapsulate that damaged tissue to aid it in healing?
Yes. Well, acute inflammation is any kind of acute injury. Yes. Whether it's bacterial or you could have a cut or anything like that. Yes. So the body is, when you get a cut or let's say you have a cut on your arm, then your body has to contain that because now you have an injury there, plus some bacteria enter that area. So our body now is mobilizing to kind of contain that problem, and it's mobilizing all the immune tissues as well as blood flow, bringing lots of blood, and it'll swell. So that area will swell, become red, and actually warm. It can do that, but it's a good response. It's doing that, and it contains it. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Sabine said, I did not know there was such a thing as a pancreatic transplant. And then she asked a question, metformin with muscle atrophy.
Well, that's been the only sort of criticism. They're talking about that. There is a few paper that was out about chronic metformin use and possible muscle atrophy. It is not true. First of all, that study used 3,000 milligrams of metformin a day. Just for the one thing, I take 500 milligrams a day. Even 1,000 milligrams is not. So 3,000 milligrams is fairly high dosage. And so that study, though, if you look at the whole depth of the study, the muscle, there's not a muscle atrophy. The muscle you develop from exercise, actually, they said, just doesn't quite grow as big as the muscle you would if you were not on metformin. However, the muscle that you did have, though, on metformin was just as strong as the muscle you developed.
Great. Sabine's saying, actually, she meant
slightly smaller muscle was even stronger, but more importantly, they found that metformin makes every cell in the body more healthy. So that muscle atrophy study is a little skewed. You got to look at the full study, look at the look at the dosage of it. And so
Right.
if you take all that, most of us take under 1,000 milligrams, 1,500
Right.
milligrams.
Oh, she was wondering actually if metformin could treat muscle atrophy.
From muscle atrophy from what?
In other words, if a person had muscle, she didn't really specify, but could you use metformin to treat muscle atrophy? Was her question.
Unfortunately, it depends on what the etiology, origin of muscle atrophy is. If it's from lack of exercise or it's from some process, then it may not. I mean, I think their exercise and good nutrition would help more, right? But
Yes.
metformin would not necessarily hurt the muscle atrophy. That's what I'm saying. It's going to make
Right.
the cell healthy.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you. And Dr. Kwan, what about kidney and bladder stones? Meaning, what is the body's purpose in making kidney and bladder stones?
I don't know if there's really a purpose to that. I think it's processed in the kidney, as you know, the kidney stones, and it's a calcium basic. Most are calcium stones. It could be
Right.
other stones as well, but
Right.
these it precipitates out in the tubules of the kidney. So I'm
Yeah.
not.
I think it's
No, I think
microvascular.
it's a condensation. I think it's a law of physics. I think it's
Yeah.
just a natural condensation. If there's too much elevated levels of it, it
Yep.
condensates out, and unfortunately, that's the laws of physics and physiology.
Right. Right. Honestly,
So
the kidneys are so microvascular. I think it's
yeah,
a microvascular problem, at least in some
it
cases.
can be if you improve the microvascular system. Yeah, I
Right.
bet that you would improve that.
Yeah. And just going to check on our watch page if we had a question there. Sandra saying my head is spinning with all this terrific information and wisdom. Thank you. So we got a lot of love for you here, Edmund, in the chat. People are just blown away by this perspective. Me too. This is really reframing a lot of things for me too, especially related to cancer. This is and
Yeah.
cardiovascular disease. It's
And
really
more importantly, I think, Michael, this is all logical, right?
yes, it is.
All logical.
It
It's
is.
not
Yes.
like it's off of another planet. It's all logical. It's there. We all know it. And if you look at the studies are very consistent with all this.
Yes.
And medicine is looking for. I'm not really sure what they're looking for. Like I was saying,
Another drug.
even with this important discovery and Nobel laureates, they
Yes.
found that hypoxia-inducible factor is this
Mm.
amazing oxygen sensor that exists in our body. Yet, so what are they doing? They're saying, well, in disease state, HIF level goes up, so we must come up with a drug that blocks HIF. That's an immediate response.
Right.
Instead
Exactly.
of saying, what caused HIF to go up?
Yes.
Microcirculatory.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. That's huge.
So
Excellent.
they're just going after the symptoms. Jump
That's
on the symptom,
for sure. For sure.
which they are amazingly good at.
Yep. Excellent. Well,
Okay.
Dr. Edmund Kwan, thank you so much. You are literally revolutionizing healthcare from the inside out, from inside the medical system as a physician, and bringing, I believe, the future of healthcare into view related to tissue oxygenation and microcirculation. So thank you so much for your time
Thank you.
today. Dr. Kwan, thank you, folks. Let It Flow is his book, and his website, Dr. Edmund Kwan, KWAN.com. Thank you so
And
much.
lastly, Michael, I
Yes,
am going to continue my fight in this journey
thank
alongside
you.
you.
And we
We'll all
want to, yeah,
fight to bring real good information to people and
yeah.
what people should do to stay healthy, right?
Well, that's wonderful. Well, I'm with you in that. We will continue to do that together. As soon as I know you're working on another paper in the future, please come back to the show to
I
tell us
will.
about your new findings. We'd love to hear from you. So appreciate it and great to be connected to my old hometown as well. So
Yeah.
thank you, Edmund. Much appreciation to you. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure, Michael. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Wow. That's huge. That is just massive. So wow, so many things that were right there. Just wanted to follow up on a couple of things. He shared so much. I was trying to keep up with him. There's just a lot to unpack there, and let me just make sure our next guest is queued up. And okay.
Sorry, Michael, I left a little too early.
Oh, no problem. No, you're just fine.
Okay.
This is great. No, thank you. We're just gonna get our we have one more guest to talk
Okay,
to
great,
today.
thank you.
You're the primary featured guest today, but we have a short piece with a returning guest.
Okay.
So
Yes.
thank
Thank
you.
you very
And
much.
folks, yeah, thank you. And just to answer folks' questions, I'll just give you this page. This is this is a home care medical device called the Beamer Pulse Electromagnetic Field Therapy device. And this is designed to be used at home. I use it in the clinic, and I sit on the little cushion every day in my desk here. But this is designed to be a home care medical device that folks use every day just for 8 minutes, twice a day to optimize microcirculation. And, I've been practicing now 36 years. I haven't seen anything have such a dramatic effect on microcirculation in this dramatic a way. I'll just put it that way. And we've also seen, one of the videos here. So this is the information page about it, michaelgaeta.com/PEMF. And if you don't yet have one of these at home, there's 1 million users worldwide in 44 countries. This is the only FDA Class 2 cleared medical device in this class, and the only device that has now, I just found another one, 69 published studies on using this exact device as the intervention. And so it's really the only scientifically validated device available, and the only one really that focuses on microcirculation, as Dr. Kwan talked about today. So this page has all the information about how to get one. We do a lot of follow-on education, including weekly classes. And again, this is most devices have 1 or 2 studies. This has 69 and counting. And this is our class that's coming up this month. It's every month on the 4th Thursday. This month we're talking about the lungs and the respiratory system and how that relates to microcirculation. So you'll see this on the page, our monthly science and solutions class. If you don't yet have the device, I'll put in the chat how to get one. And again, this is exactly what Dr. Kwan was talking about. I think I'm going to have some follow-up conversations with him because I think what he's talking about is that microcirculation is, I think that was the message I took away from today. Microcirculation is the future of healthcare. And so this is the device, very inexpensive compared to other devices, and the only one, again, that has the evidence base in terms of outcome studies. We looked at one of those today. So far, I've just been using this thing for only 3 years. Every single patient, without exception, has been absolutely thrilled. And that I pay attention to that. 100% patient happiness rate, I guess you would say. And that's significant because that means folks are seeing the benefit of how this really, they feel better. Their quality of life improves, as we saw today. This is the key to health is microcirculation. And just before we move on, this will be our final note on this. This is the only device on the planet that is Class 2 cleared by FDA, also Health Canada, also in Europe. And this is a unique signal that causes it to work. It's not the PEMF field that actually makes it work. The PEMF field carries the signal that improves microcirculation. And this is really what Dr. Kwan and his work are really focused on, is the importance of that. So, and there's also a device for horses. If you have a horse or know somebody with a horse, It's the only really research-backed horse device. And happy to announce, and Bentley is very excited about this, the dog unit is coming out August 15th. So specifically made for the dogs and the small pets. So you have a large animal in the horse unit, and the small animal will be out August 15th. So if you don't have one of these things, you'll be glad you did. It really makes a difference. Patients love this thing. They feel better. Just recently had a Parkinson's patient. His Parkinson's is gone. He no longer has tremors because his detoxification from his brain and oxygenation of his brain has been optimized. He doesn't have tremors anymore except when he's stressed. It's a stress-induced thing now. Instead of constantly, now it's just that. Other folks with Alzheimer's, they're speaking again, their physical performance, they're able to walk better. I mean, just so many changes. It's just very reliable, and it's all based on what Dr. Kwan talked about today, is that it all comes down to microcirculation. And this is really the most effective microcirculation intervention in the world. So that was that. So a couple of things, other things I wanted to follow up on. That was the main thing. And then also Dr. Kwan took our course, Let It Flow, which I'd recommend to you. The whole course is about microcirculation and herbal, lifestyle, nutritional, dietary interventions for how to optimize whole body microcirculation. The whole course, well, I named the course after his book. But this is a whole course on microcirculation about how to use diet and exercise and lifestyle and herbal medicine and nutritional therapy to optimize whole body microcirculation. So I'll give you a discount on this and on our other courses, MWM10. And I would certainly recommend that to you. Dr. Kwan listened to the course himself and found it to be very helpful from what I understand. So really highly recommend it. All right, a couple of other things. So it was really kind of cool to see that his path really started with well, not microcirculation, but the China study, which I've made endless fun of for many years. And I wanted to give you, and certainly the takeaway being that diet is important is very helpful. The book is not super awesome in terms of its distortion of what the China study data actually said. So wanted to just point you to deniseminger.com, also rawfoodsos.com will take you to the same place. And this paper came out, this is 10 years ago now, the China study paper, where she basically went through the whole book line by line and literally just shredded the whole book, that the book is sort of distorted what the China study said. And it appears, although he claims otherwise, it looks like Colin Campbell's, he kind of had a pre-existing conclusion that everybody should be vegetarian. And that's not what the China study data actually says. So if you're curious about that, just go to this website, a former raw food vegan, by the way. So she didn't come in with like everybody should be carnivore either. She was a raw food vegan and did not have, any preconceived notions, but she's very good at reading science. And so she critiqued the book from that perspective. So highly recommended. She did a great job. And, Campbell was pretty upset that this, at the time, 23-year-old was kind of critiquing his book, but she did a great job exactly on that. Also, wanted to share a couple of papers with you that I know you'll find beneficial to support exactly what Dr. Kwan talked about, which is the importance of microcirculation. So a couple of papers I know you'll enjoy that really support what he's talking about. And the first is the microcirculatory theory of aging. And I'm going to put this into the chat for you. And this is a great paper on this exact subject. So I'll put this on the, it's in the chat, and also I'll put this on the screen. And this is a paper that came out some time ago and is sort of timeless in its conclusions, being very much in keeping with what Dr. Kwan was sharing today. And this is the, where did it go? The microcirculatory theory of aging. I'll just open up a new copy here. And this is pretty awesome. This came out in 2019. This is Dr. Kunlin Jin. And basically, his conclusion was that aging is a process, exactly what Dr. Kwan was talking about today, and came to the same conclusion that aging itself is a process of continuous impairment of microcirculation. Very significant. And by the way, you know, the best kind of home care way to do that is with the Beamer. PEMF does that uniquely. On the herbal side, one of the best, I'd say one of the two best, the other is ginkgo, ways to improve microcirculation herbally is with an ancient Chinese herb, Salvia miltiorrhiza. And this is also known as Dan Shen. And this is a tremendous herb for improving microvascular circulation. It's very inexpensive. You'll find it here on our store page. I take it every day. It's one of the most frequently recommended herbs in my clinical practice. And it's incredibly effective if you're looking at the literature on this. And there's a 26-minute video on this one herb and 4 studies out of the 50,000 articles that have been published just on this one herb. And much of the literature confirms its effect on microcirculation. So that's pretty remarkable. So I would certainly recommend this as what I take is 3 a day on a preventative basis. It costs less than 50 cents at 3 capsules a day of this wonderful herb that's been used for thousands of years. And there's a course if you want to get the deep dive on this herb, Chinese sage, ancient herb for modern times, which is in our school. And that's very helpful. And Linnell, I would say it complements Circuplex. Circuplex is a 3-formula combination of RNA, B6 niacinamide and niacinamide B6 and phosphate. So that is a great formula for enhancing circulation. A little more on the synthetic side, so I don't use it long term. But I would use formulas like Cerita Plus forever, as I've been taking it for decades, or formulas that contain it for optimizing, vascular health. So is there a protocol with the Beamer for insulin resistance? It's really just using it for the whole body. We don't do protocols, so to speak, because the Beamer improves systemic microcirculation, but insulin resistance is a liver problem. And so what I recommend to patients is they lay on the bee body twice a day and then take the bee pad, which is like a big belt, and wrap it around or drape it over the liver. Can also use a bee spot right on the liver. And that's what I would do if I had insulin resistance. That's a liver problem. That's type 2 diabetes. If it was type 1 diabetes, that's a pancreas problem of insulin production. And it's pretty remarkable how he explained today how all of that relates to the microvasculature. So Dan Shen would augment Circuplex. If I had to pick one that would be more important, it would certainly be the Dan Shen. But I do use Circuplex, in my practice for sure, on a relative, weeks and months, not years basis, but always in addition to the Dan Shen. So that's what I would say. Yeah, we don't, Linnell, if you have a Beamer already, then I would just talk to the person who recommended that to you for ongoing training and education. We do that for our team here every week, um, but that's certainly talk to whoever recommended the device to you for ongoing training. If you're with our team, then we do classes for you every week. All right, so that's that. And yeah, pretty remarkable. Pretty great. I would agree with you, Sabine. It was a kind of an amazing discussion. All right, so a couple other things that he shared so much. I mean, just a lot to catch up on. He talked about metformin, which again, among the pharmaceuticals is relatively more benign than others, but we have very good alternatives to metformin that are not pharmaceutical. And again, metformin's an older drug. It was first used clinically in 1957. So we like old drugs much better than new drugs. They're safer and typically cheaper. You do not want to take new pharmaceuticals, in my opinion. About a third of them end up getting recalled eventually, and it is much safer to use older drugs for the same purpose. It's unusual that the newer drugs work better. And it's kind of interesting. The one drug he takes himself came out in 1957. He's not taking one of the newer drugs for himself. Yeah, I'm not, he did, I'm not sure. I have to go back to the recording. I kind of don't recall what he said it was derived from. Let me see if I can, let me take a quick look at that. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not actually sure where it was originally derived from. Um, let's see. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So here I found it. Yeah, so it was the usual synthesis of metformin, originally described in 1922, involves a reaction of a heated solution of dimethylamine hydrochloride and 2-cyanoguanidine. So there you go. So that's how it was originally made. But it looks like they have a better way to make it now. So the original 1922 method is they apparently have an upgraded methodology. And okay, so it looks like it was oh, okay. Goat's root. That's the herb he was talking about. Galega officinalis. Galega officinalis, goat's rue. Interesting. Okay. Well, I'll just give you that. This is, again, I actively dislike Wikipedia for anything natural health because they lie a lot and it's highly censored. But when it comes to pharmaceuticals, they're awesome because it's a super biased website, Wikipedia, strongly biased, censored against natural anything and for anything pharmaceutical. So anyway, if you're looking up pharmaceuticals, since it's basically a pro pharma website, Wikipedia, I use it all the time for looking up pharma drugs, but try to avoid it for anything natural health at all. So that's that. Um, oh, oh yeah, I'm not sure, but he's really done an amazing service with this book. Again, please get his book. One of my favorite books on the subject, Let It Flow, Dr. Edmund Quant. All right, so I was trying to study. What I wanted to go through next was we have better, safer, natural alternatives for improving insulin sensitivity. And I want to just put this paper up on the screen here related to a very famous herb that also improves insulin sensitivity. Just going to do a little bit of health training here and just read this paper. I've got to find This is all about improving insulin sensitivity. So this is 3 herbs: milk thistle, Korean ginseng, which is Panax, and ginkgo biloba. These 3 herbs are excellent for improving insulin sensitivity. And they're all found in this herbal product that I take every day because it's really designed to help prevent the common diseases of aging, in part by optimizing microvascular circulation and improving insulin sensitivity. So if we just look through this formulation, then we'll get into the studies. Japanese knotweed root, best natural source of resveratrol, naturally occurring trans resveratrol, not an isolate or a synthetic. Milk thistle, one of the most important herbs for the modern world, best herb on the planet for the liver. Korean ginseng, the king of the adaptogen tonics. Grapeseed, a vascular formula, also tissue repair. So it's another microvascular herb, as is ginkgo. With danshan, these two are probably the most important microvascular herbs in the world. So this is the formula that I take every day. I've been taking it every day for about 20 years or so. And it's just fabulous. And people feel better, like they notice it, like, oh, I feel stronger, I feel more grounded, more oomph, more resilient. It's something that people notice. And I'll give you a link to this formula. So this is published in Nutrition, Metabolism, and Cardiovascular Diseases. And this one herb reduced fasting insulin by 1/3 in, this was 3 months. So Korean ginseng improving glucose and insulin regulation in a double-blind placebo-controlled study. Then this was lowered insulin resistance, improved insulin sensitivity. In the placebo group, it went up by 10%. So the differential is actually a 44% differential in the difference between the treatment group and the non-treatment group. This is another formula I also take every day as an energy formula and also healthy aging. So this was a systematic review and meta-analysis and this is published in Medicine. Most important type of study there is a systematic review and meta-analysis. And what did they find? Ginseng supplementation improved fasting glucose, insulin, and HOMA-IR, which is an insulin resistance blood test. It also improved triglycerides. Total cholesterol is meaningless, LDL meaningless, but the main thing here was triglycerides, glucose, and insulin. These 3 incredibly helpful. Triglycerides are circulating fats. So that's pretty awesome. Goes on from there. And this is, again, alternatives to metformin for those who are interested and you want to improve your insulin sensitivity, as Dr. Kwan said, without a drug. And this is published in Phytotherapy Research, milk thistle, in treating patients with type 2 diabetes. This is a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial. So what they found in this study, just this one herb, again, when you use them in combination, it's even better. And what did they find? A big difference. Just resetting my sit now. They say sitting is the new smoking. That's why I sit on this Beamer seat cushion all day to keep circulation, keep the blood flowing while I'm at my desk, right? They do, and there's evidence to suggest that idea that sitting a lot is a problem, and it's a circulatory problem. So again, use the Beamer not just on your couch or in bed, but also while you're sitting down and get your blood flowing. Also great on an airplane for the same reason. Anyway, milk thistle reduced hemoglobin A1C, the most important number everybody needs to know. And please make a note, the target is 5.2. This is a 2 to 4 month average of your blood sugar, much more important than your glucose, which changes every minute or every 10 minutes or every hour. The A1C is a stable measurement of sugar, 2 to 4 month average. So 13% reduction is pretty good. And by the way, they used a much smaller dose than's found in milk thistle forte or herbal vital. So we may possibly see even better results using this superior product. It's a 70-to-1 extract, about 15 grams per tablet of milk thistle forte. So myself, I take the herbal vital and then I add just one milk thistle forte. That's optional. You could just use the milk thistle forte that's built into the herbal vital alone at a basic dose of 3 a day, and you'd have plenty of milk thistle to achieve this outcome. Fasting glucose dropped 15%, triglycerides dropped 25%. I think that's partly, I mean, that's astounding. That's partly because of the improvement in bile flow, I would think. So that's pretty impressive. This is published in Phytomedicine. This was 9 years later, 2015. And what did they find? Triple blind, placebo controlled trial. And what happened? They found that these 40 type 2 diabetes patients took a very modest amount of milk thistle, much less than what is in milk thistle forte or herbal vital. And what happened? Compared to placebo, they had an increase in superoxide dismutase, kind of the master enzyme for oxygen metabolism and cellular protection, 13% increase in SOD, a 30% increase in glutathione peroxidase. That's astounding. A lot of people are taking glutathione supplements. I think that's a bad idea. It's much better to help your body make more of its own rather than taking an external replacement. And this herb does that. 30% increase in glutathione peroxidase. And then MDA, which is an inflammatory marker, decreased by 12%. So that's pretty remarkable. And decrease in vascular inflammation, CRP went down 8.5% with high sensitivity CRP. Oh, I'm sorry, no, 27% reduction in cardiac or high sensitivity CRP. That's astounding. That number, folks, should be 1 or less. Just make a note of that. You should check it every year or two and check your high sensitivity CRP, one of the best markers we have for future risk of heart attack and stroke. And so an incredible improvement. So that's milk thistle. And then we have ginkgo, one of the most important herbs for the modern world. It's a modern herb, by the way. There's no real mention of this in the ancient herbal literature. This sort of came out of Germany in the 60s. And what did they find? This, like Danshen, is a microcirculatory herb, protective of liver cells, endothelial function, just like Danshen. And they found a tremendous benefit. We have also an increase in SOD, reduced AST and ALT, such as you would find with milk thistle, reduced fatty liver, another use of milk thistle, less fatty liver disease, improved insulin sensitivity, and they concluded that this herb, that insulin resistance leads to endothelial dysfunction. That's what Dr. Kwan was talking about, and vice versa. The endothelial dysfunction contributes to insulin resistance and fatty liver. Ginkgo can improve sugar and fat metabolism, protects the hepatocytes, improves endothelial function of the microvessels, and may partly or remarkably reverse endothelial dysfunction and fatty liver due to insulin resistance. This was another study on ginkgo, decreased insulin, improved sensitivity, lowered body weight and fat, triglycerides, reduced liver enlargement and the main liver damage enzyme, ALT, increased glucose tolerance. So this is just remarkable. They also found that ginkgo improves memory, cognition, quality of life, cerebral blood flow, concentration, executive function, memory, mood, less stress, lowered sugar, lowered A1C, lowered insulin, less belly fat, lowered waist circumference, so fewer inches on the waist, and also prevention and treatment of aging related conditions. That's based on 14 clinical trials on this herb and a whole range of things. So this is a key herb. Also reduces inflammation measured by interleukin 6, reduces nanoplaque formation, dramatically lowered cardiac CRP and the measure of insulin resistance. That's astounding. This is published in the journal Atherosclerosis as well. Just an incredible thing. Now, this is where it was measured as an add-on to metformin. My opinion is it could be used instead of metformin, which is what I would do if it was me. And that's what I take, that's what I do myself. I'm not taking metformin, but I am using these herbs, ginkgo, milk thistle, Korean ginseng, every day, preventatively. So again, this study, same thing, ginkgo biloba significantly decreases A1C, fasting glucose, insulin resistance, body mass index, waist circumference, visceral fat, leptin, high sensitivity CRP, tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin 6. That's amazing, amazing. And so this is just 3 months at a low dose, 120 milligrams. So 3 herbal vital a day will cover all of these herbs at therapeutic doses, which is pretty remarkable. Even lower lipoprotein A, we used to think was genetic. That's not true. This is the most effective thing in the world for lowering lipoprotein A, 23% reduction in just 2 months with more SOD production, lowered oxidized LDL, that makes up vulnerable plaque, which is likely to burst and cause a clot. This is astounding. And this is published in the journal Atherosclerosis. This wasn't like an herbal magazine. So just incredible results with this herb. So wrapping all that up together, and then we'll have our guest coming on shortly, I think. Just wanted to give you a link to this formula that I take every day, which has these 3 herbs, which in my opinion can function as an alternative, a natural, better, safer, does a lot more good things than metformin. So this is the formula that economically provides all 3 of these herbs at therapeutic doses in one formula. That's why I've been taking it every day for at least 20 years. Maybe it's more, but not less than 20 years. So, so there's the link to the formula. I'm just going to put this over on our watch page for folks on our watch page, like Sandra. Hi. Oh, BPAD on the liver. I'm using P3. Or intensity high using the BPAD for sure. And that's what I recommend to patients. Again, the Beamer doesn't treat, prevent, or cure any disease, but that's how I use it to support optimal microvascular circulation. So let me just give you this particular formula that I've been mentioning, which kind of does the whole package and goes way beyond metformin as a therapeutic. Berberine is awesome, by the way, Amy. It's fabulous for all things fatty liver, sugar. If folks want to avoid Ozempic, which they should, we have a whole course on that, by the way. But here's the Herbal Vital, and you'll see, and again, it's a low dose, anywhere from 2 to 4 tablets a day is all you need. So even at a low dose of 2 a day, you're getting therapeutic amounts of the ginseng, modest but therapeutic. Loads of milk thistle. This you get more than 9 grams per tablet and 60 milligrams of ginkgo leaf. And so that's decent. Again, it's modest, but certainly therapeutic as an all-in-one formula. What I will often do, and what I take myself, is I'll add ginkgo forte, I'll add milk thistle forte in addition at just 1 or 2 a day. But that's optional. and then rhodiola and ginseng. These are all great herbal alternatives to metformin, which have a much broader range of benefit as well than just the metformin alone. So that's that. And if you haven't taken it yet, I know many of you have, please take advantage of our course on metformin, not metformin, on Ozempic. And it's brilliant. I taught it with the primary instructor, Dr. Jeff Crippen, and he was on the show many times. And he made this, and we taught it together, this amazing course, and really one of our more important courses, I would say, because of the Ozempic epidemic, this epidemic of people using Ozempic, it's a very dangerous drug. We have this fabulous course at michaelgaeta.com under courses called Beyond Ozempic, where you'll learn all of the dangers of Ozempic and the natural alternatives, even beyond the bit we talked about today. So highly recommend that as a fabulous course on this exact subject as well. There's our Chinese sage on that, and there it is. Okay, so Beyond Ozempic. Okay, let's take a look here. There's a chance our next guest might be here. He's a very busy guy, and let's see if he is in yet. Not just yet. Okay. So just to give you some background here, I had the great Dr. Peter McCullough on the show for the second time a few weeks ago, and he said something that, which Dr. Clinton Ohlers and I had a little cringe about, saying that there's no evidence that there's any problems with the blood supply of folks who, like a transfusion people need from, occasionally with surgery and trauma, that it's totally fine to use, blood supply of folks who have received the COVID mRNA injections, which most certainly is not true. And so Clinton sent me a note. Hey, I'd love to talk about that a bit and discuss that on the show, because we don't want folks to get the idea that there are zero risks associated with folks who have received a COVID shot donating blood to somebody else who maybe has not received the COVID injection. So I'm just going to, just in the interest of time, I know we're running a little bit late here, but he'll be on any minute. And Dr. Clinton Ohlers is the Director of Media Relations for Safe Blood Donation. He's the U.S. representative and Director of Media Relations. He is a historian. He earned his PhD from the University of Pennsylvania, where he focused on the history of science and served as a lecturer at UPenn on science and religion. He also held a postdoctoral fellowship with the Templeton-funded Creation Project at the Carl F.H. Henry Center for Theological Understanding at Trinity Divinity School. He also taught as an assistant research professor at the University of Hong Kong. He writes as an investigative editor for Free Press Media Group and its flagship publication, worldtribune.com. He's also co-host of the Broken Truth webcast with journalist and filmmaker John Davidson, and he co-authored a piece with Dr. James Thorpe, who's coming on the show later this year, and on a new piece on fertility and COVID injections. So that was that, and let's see here. Oh, and he's here, perfectly on cue. We just finished his intro, and we could spend the whole show just with his bio and curriculum vitae. He's so awesome and so accomplished in his career as a historian, and suddenly found himself in this area of COVID and lockdowns and injections and blood supply. But please welcome back to the show, I don't know, for the 1000th time, the wonderful Dr. Clinton Ohlers. Clinton, thank you for being with us today and coming back to the show.
Well, Michael, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, it's great to be on. And that I am working, as you pointed out, on a co-authoring a piece with Dr. James Thorpe and some others on what we, naturally believe is a very important issue, which is individuals who have been harmed through blood transfusions only as their only known exposure to the mRNA vaccines.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's huge.
Wow. Right. And as you know, I thought it was important to come on and talk about that a little bit in light of your recent interview with Dr. Peter McCullough, because Dr. McCullough had been, pretty outspoken that he felt that there was no risk from the blood supply.
Yes.
And so I thought that was worth talking about.
Please. Yeah, it sure is.
First and foremost, because to a certain extent, the risk is unknown. Okay.
Right.
But what we do know is that it's not zero. And for some people, it's been quite severe. So that study that I'm working on with Jim is we're looking specifically at individuals who did not have, in most cases, did not have the COVID-19 vaccine, right? Certainly the first line of cases that we're looking at, the most important distinguishing element is they had no exposure to the COVID-19 vaccine.
Right.
Then they had to get a blood transfusion. Okay. And as a result, they then suffered severe adverse reactions up to and including in some cases death in ways that were typical only of the mRNA vaccine. So what do I mean? Well, for example, the famous case of, right, you see, so no exposure and the complication, it's not just that a complication followed a blood transfusion, because complications there can be clotting, for example, is not completely uncommon, right? But to have a fibrinogen type clot running from the knee to the heart of an infant, right? Right after a blood transfusion where the knee was the location of the transfusion site, right?
Wow.
So this is the famous case of baby Alex, right?
Right. We talked about that.
Yeah, and that's extremely unheard. I was going to say it's extremely unusual, but I should correct myself and say it's unheard of before
and
the
Clinton, just for folks who did not catch that show, if you would please, the baby Alex story, in case folks were not there for your show on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the case with baby Alex was you had a baby, a newborn, with a congenital heart defect that had a 95% chance of successful outcome with surgery.
Yes.
And the parents were concerned. This is back in 21. And they were concerned that the vaccine had recently rolled out and that this baby could be exposed to vaccine components through the blood transfusion.
Right.
And so they then did what we do, right? Safe Blood offers directed donations. We match donors with recipients.
Right.
And so they went out and did this on their own and did so at, additional cost to make sure that their child would receive blood from, a host like you would have received it from prior to, 2020.
Right.
And what happened, though, was that in a preliminary surgery before the main one, the doctor apparently decided just to top up the baby's blood levels.
Oh.
And did so with blood off of the shelf without inquiring the parents, informing them of that. And immediately, within hours after that, the baby Alex began to develop one of these fibrous clots that is unresponsive to any, normal clot thinners. And, in a way, I wonder if we should even be calling these clots, people call them calamari clots. That clot was not actually autopsied to know exactly, so scientifically. However, we know that it's a clot that ran from the knee to the heart. That's most of the body length of the child. That there's only one kind of clot like that we've seen, and that's these fibrinogen clots.
Yeah.
And they're not really a blood clot, right? They're made up of amyloid protein and fibrinogen, and they're not, they're not a blood product.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's almost misleading to call them a clot, but we just have no other word for them, right?
Wow.
So, but it was unresponsive to any counteractive measures that they took, and he ended up dying several days later as a result of that clot.
Wow. Wow.
So that's the baby Alex case. Now there's also baby Radgiver. This is a case where the mother passed during childbirth, and they saved the baby, gave the newborn a blood transfusion, and then that newborn died very quickly thereafter from myocarditis. Right.
Wow.
So again, something else, like when, myocarditis is so rare, used to be so rare, that, a doctor would, even cardiologists would, is my understanding, might go virtually their whole career and only see one or two or no cases in a young child. So, again, this is really uncommon stuff. And so we have a number of these cases and several more with adults where it's just a distinctive mRNA adverse reaction occurring to someone who had no other exposure than a blood transfusion.
Wow. Well, that's telling, because you and Dr. Thorpe are isolating folks who did not have a COVID jab, but then did receive transfused blood.
Correct.
Wow.
So when Peter said in that interview, I don't know of any known case of transference, or bona fide case of transference, that there, I mean, we're not exactly sure what he exactly means by transference, but clearly you have harms from the mRNA vaccine transferring through the blood, and we can talk about that more. But in other, you could say there's been nothing published in the scientific literature yet, right? I mean, that would certainly be the case, which is why we want to get these stories out there.
Right. So what would your response be to someone claiming that the blood supply is safe?
Well,
folks who've had the injection.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, because, and particularly thinking in context of what Peter was saying, is that his first premise was that, blood only stays on the shelf about 30 days, maybe 40 days, and then it's replenished. And we're a long way out from the initial vaccinations, and the booster uptake is so low. Okay. Now, I agree that these are good things, right? And so, and my hope originally, doing this and getting involved with Safe Blood is that we were hoping, maybe 5 years out or so, we see a, reduced uptake of the boosters. Maybe the technology is just flat out banned, right? And then our interest will be, how long does it take for things to get back to where they were? Okay. And we would want testing and things like that to know, is the blood supply following that improvement that we would expect, right? But what we really need is we need some sort of measures so that people know. Now, there's another number of things that have developed, some of which have been brought to light by Dr. McCullough himself, that causes us to be less sanguine than we were before, okay? And let me go through those. So, Peter talked a lot about the spike protein, okay? And circulating spike and what they're doing and the fantastic work we're doing. I mean, I found the interview very encouraging in regards to hopeful treatments for people who are suffering a lot of these vaccine injuries because of the proliferation and continuous production of spike protein, okay? So, but that's just the problem, right? Is it is continuing to circulate. We have obviously the Yale study and others that showed spike in the blood a couple years out in some patients, and we know that that's just because it was a couple years out that they did the study. Right now, we know from other patient reports with bona fide blood tests. And
Right.
particularly in Europe, there's the availability of a number of tests where they're not just measuring any antibodies, they're measuring the content level of the spike, right?
Mm.
And you have people 5 years out. I know of one Hurricane Shelley who I interact with quite a bit. She's
Right.
over 5 years out now, producing high levels of spike protein. And then
5
somebody
years.
like Julie Threet, who goes by Julie for Butte on X,
Yeah.
she was somebody who was vaccine injured, but then has had elevated spike levels since getting blood transfusions that were necessary because of her vaccine injuries.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So what's happening is if the spike is the pathological part of the component of the virus, which has now been magnified through vaccination for vaccinated individuals, or at least for some vaccinated individuals, and those are circulating in the bloodstream years later, then clearly they can affect somebody getting that blood. I mean, let's put it this way, there's no theoretical reason that they wouldn't. In other words, do you want to receive blood that has elevated COVID-19 spike in it?
Right.
Because the proponent, and I've taught, Jim has pointed this out, James Thorpe has, said, he knows a person who has had multiple adverse side effects from the vaccines and who continues to give blood. And he's even personally said, would you stop doing this? But apparently this fellow's in, denial or something, or, I mean, he knows he's vaccine injured, but if you're vaccine injured and you're giving blood, then presumably you're continuing to experience many of these injuries, probably because you have circulating spike. Okay. So the very things that Dr. McCullough is so successfully treating are circulating in the blood. That's part of the problem. Now, the other thing he's brought to light is the continuation of the mRNA itself. He has that fascinating case now, over 3.5, probably getting on close to 4 years now, of this individual who is still has mRNA circulating in his system, right? That's the mRNA. That's not the spike. That's the mRNA.
It's the cause of the spike. Yeah.
And now that raises the question, is this only in somebody who is severely vaccine injured? Or is it just in his case, he was severely vaccine injured and he's still making the mRNA, but other people are making mRNA and might be less symptomatic? Like, you see, these are just answers we don't have. These are questions we don't have answers for. Right. And if I'm somebody who's doing due diligence, trying to take care of my health, and I need a blood transfusion, certainly I would want answer to these before I just necessarily took blood off the shelf. Okay.
Yes.
Now, because if you're receiving spike protein, if you're receiving mRNA, then that is a vaccination, through the side door by way of a blood transfusion.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I just want to catch folks up. You've given us a big download here. I just want to and I'll get folks linked to these. This is one of the publications that Dr. Ohlers writes for the World Tribune. And this was a study they published on this subject of this Yale study, which caused quite a hubbub that Dr. Ohlers is telling us about. Folks finding spike protein in the blood more than 2 years, and I think we're way beyond that. This was some time ago. And then, so I'll give you the link to this in the chat. And then also, this was Alex Berenson publishing on the same thing. And these are folks who apparently did not get infected with COVID, but did get the injection. And then this is Philip Altman, evidence of genetic damage due to the COVID vaccine. Again, based on this mRNA spike persistence after injection. And then from one of our faculty here, Dr. James Lyons-Weiler here at the school, this study linking persistent spike protein to post-vaccination syndrome and immune dysregulation. So Clinton, for folks who are not familiar, we have a solution to this, which thank you for helping provide. And by the way, this is one of the original. If you could just walk us through these two images here of normal and post-vaccine blood.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is off of our website, safeblood.com, right? Our solution, of course, is to provide non-mRNA vaccinated blood donors as matches for people who need transfusions. Now, these are, of course, for pre-planned surgeries,
Yep.
right? You need a lead up time, preferably of at least a couple weeks, although we have done it more quickly where we get you matched with the donor. And this is, of course, is you're receiving then whole blood from this other donor. And one of the benefits, regardless of trying to avoid things like we see on this image here, are the fact that that's fresh blood. The best blood for you is going to be fresher blood, right? So you're not taking something that's maybe been on the shelf 30 days and they're moving it to you because they want to get the older stuff off the shelf and the newer stuff up front.
Right.
You're getting the best, available blood that you could get. Now, this is what got us started, these two images here, right? So on the right-hand side, ungeimpft, that's the German. We were started in Switzerland by George Della Pietra.
Yes.
But that is how blood should look under magnification of just, a medical school level quality microscope. This is nothing special here or,
what does that word mean?
Yeah. Just a dark field microscopy. And then on the left, though.
What is that word, ungeimpft? I guess I have to look that up. Do you know the translation of that?
Well, I assume it's unvaccinated.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that is the unvaccinated. So, I didn't
sense.
actually look it up to see the direct translation. Yeah, but it effectively is unvaccinated. And then on the left-hand side, you've got somebody who's received Moderna. Okay. And people go to our site can see the video that underlies this, but this is basically what got us started was that, I should say essentially what got us started, that naturopaths in Europe were looking at blood under magnification and seeing this. And instead of seeing on the right-hand side, they were seeing what you see on the left for people who had had the vaccine. And I asked when I was asked to come on and participate with Safe Blood, I looked at this and I asked George, I said, this is interesting. What kind of level of risk are we looking at here? Like, is this blood on the left? Is that being experienced by, say, 20% of people who received the vaccine? 10%? Right. Is this just a rare thing?
That's a good question.
It was 100%. 100% of people they were looking at, were having this reloads and indicating that things were going on in the blood that were not ideal, right? And so,
to say the least.
yeah. So, George described it. He said, there's more that's going on in this slide than somebody who's untrained would pick up on. He said, but for me, I was seeing things that sometimes I had only seen in a stage 4 cancer patient.
Wow.
Yet in a person who is unsymptomatic. And they were really then concerned about the need for what the long-term risks of the blood supply were going to be, and then establishing an alternative route so that people could avoid those.
Wow. Wow. So this is safeblood.com. And what do people need to know here, Clinton?
Well, they there's several ways you can sign up. You can become a lifetime member. That's the largest fee associated with it. That's like $1,000, but you're covered in any, underage, a minor in your home. Most people do a annual membership, which roughly, comes to roughly just over $100. It's about $10 a month. Some people do it monthly. Those are ways that you can really, and being involved in that level really helps us because, those paying members are what allow us to do what we do. I mean, we don't just match people with blood. We're working a lot on legislation. I just got back from traveling to Nashville to testify there. I've testified in Wyoming, some of these remotely. But usually remotely, but some states you actually have to go to in person. And so it's very important that we keep this we get legislation in place, which allows this right to continue. It's been an uncontested right to receive vaccinated, blood of your choice through directed donations. Didn't become contested until the COVID vaccines rolled out. So Idaho was a fantastic win. We just had one for the protection of directed and autologous blood donations. That's where you donate yourself ahead of time. It passed in the Senate and the House and was just signed into law. That's the first state where this is protected. Yeah, this is very important for Idahoans because they're the American Red Cross, because the American Red Cross is spotty in whether it allows this or not. They always come and testify against these laws, which we can speculate a lot on why that is. But but the policy is based on the director of each state. And in Idaho, they just weren't allowing it. And so people were having to travel out of Idaho to other states to get directed donations. Yeah.
Wow. So here's the, this is the idahofreedom.org, House Bill 528. And you were testifying on that as well, Clint?
Yeah. I testified in favor of that. And that that was our first big win. Now everybody's very excited about this because hopefully you get it in one state and then you get it throughout the country. And again, I just want to say this is an uncontested and uncontroversial right. I mean, this is just what people did frequently since the whole AIDS outbreak, right? And we're even encouraged to do. So it's only become now that it's an issue with the mRNA vaccines but you know, there's so much more to. I'm just gonna, if you don't mind, if I just take a couple minutes to outline a couple other things that you referred to, even in those studies, like the DNA, right? And that the DNA that's contaminated the vials, right? And the SV40 promoter, like particularly in Pfizer, because Pfizer did less cleanup than the Moderna. So Kevin McKernan has really gotten word out on that. And we've got plenty of studies now showing that this DNA is circulating in the bloodstreams of people who had the shot. Again, we don't know how many people, what percentage of people. Is it 100%? Is it 10%? Hopefully it's low. But the problem with DNA circulating in the bloodstream means it's also being produced in the body. Okay. So that the DNA in some degree integrated, whether episomally, where it's outside the nucleus, or chromosomally, where it gets into the nucleus and genuinely integrates, right? But for some reason, you're having cell division, which is perpetuating this DNA. Okay. So that, and Kevin McKernan's come out and said straight up, people in the transfusion industry should be tracking this and very concerned because this DNA should have gone away. If it was just injected into you, it should have been, you know, eaten up by the body very quickly. The fact that it didn't means that it's being perpetuated by the cells in one form or another of integration. And, you know, there's other things that I think
genomic integration is a big concern. Genomic integration, I mean, that's catastrophic, man. You've got like a new species of life form that's been genetically altered.
Hopefully it doesn't integrate into the germline, right? Hopefully this is just cells outside of reproductive. But
there's I saw there was a meme that an unvaccinated sperm is the new Bitcoin. Oh boy. Okay. No.
If I might, let me bring up one more thing that Peter McCullough brought up that is actually very, very interesting to us at SafeBlood, because he pointed out that he has a big concern about IVIG.
Yes.
Because IVIG is aggregated from such a large number of donors, you know, thousands of people, you know, their blood is, you know, that's a component product, right?
Right.
And so, but what he didn't say in the interview with you, it's a blood product, right? This is plasma, right?
Okay.
And so if he's concerned about IVIG as I mean, he's, you know, advising patients not to use it, right?
Right.
Because he feels they'll be getting spike through IVIG. Then that's obviously you know, I mean, maybe he's not thinking about it, but he's obviously concerned about transference of vaccine components and their products through the blood.
Wow.
Okay. And that raises the question, you know, most blood transfusions these days are components, right? They're red packed blood cells or packed red blood cells, right? They're platelets or they're plasma.
Right.
And to the point that often, if you want to give a whole blood transfusion, they have to reconstitute it from these other components. Okay. Now, I do believe this is part of the reason that we see such opposition from the Red Cross. As kind of as an aside, I'll throw that out there, because they make their money off of the services they provide for the blood. They're not for profit, but they charge based on these services. So if you have a whole lot of people coming in just saying, "Hey, we'll provide our own whole blood," then that's one theory I have as to why that they'd be opposed to something that they should
run around
be
Red
supporting.
Cross.
But it raises the other issue of, well, if Dr. McCullough himself is showing concern over IVIG,
right,
that's a direct concern over blood transfusions. And so the question is, well, is more of the components separated out? When you spin this stuff out, this is where we need testing and research. When you spin out the blood to separate the red blood cells from the platelets and from the plasma, and like are the vaccine components, if they're in a person's system, aggregating more in one or another of these types of products? In other words, is spike more in the IVIG, or is it more in the RBCs, or is it equally, but IVIG presents a problem because it comes from more donors? These are questions we need answers to, but I don't think it's the right time to be telling the public that just because we're a long way out from high uptake of boosters, and because blood has only a shelf life of maximum 40 days, that we're in the clear, because all of these other things are suggesting we're not.
Wow. That's a great point. Thank you. And where are we at, Clinton, with testing of various types, whether it's spike, presence, mRNA, other metrics? I know that was at least being considered.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got very good news on that. They have it in Germany, right? That's why Dr. McCullough's patient had to go to Germany. They've got better testing in Europe than we've had here. Primarily here, we've relied on antibodies, but antibodies lag by several months, the actual level. And again, antibody is not a precise measurement, but now the precise measurement is really just measuring the spike itself. And those tests, we believe, there's one or two companies are bringing on very high quality testing for that. We expect to see it in the next year, and probably the next 6 months. And there's other things that I've learned, which is the spike that is produced by the vaccine, to my understanding, is not exactly identical to that from the natural virus.
So that there's typical of all vaccines.
Yeah, there's a 2 amino acid difference, which means that in testing for spike, you can, by extension, also test for whether that vaccine is spike derived, if the spike is vaccine caused or was natural. So
that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like there's a ton that you can do with this testing. And of course, once that testing becomes available, then the shadow of ambiguity completely disappears.
Yes.
Right. Then we know exactly what's going on. And that could be very bad then for our government agencies and these vaccine makers. If once people can actually measure, wait, I've got this spike in my body now 5 years after injection, but wouldn't it be great too if we found out that a lot of people were clearing it and coming back to normal? Right. I mean, that's what we want. We don't want bad news. We want good news, but we can't get the good news unless we can get the research.
Well, right. And then you can track outcomes from interventions.
Yeah. Also what would be very important, like people don't realize, nobody, not even myself, can get bona fide mRNA free blood in an emergency, right? In an emergency, you have to take what's off the shelf or not take anything at all. Unless you can, hopefully maybe blood volume expanders or different things. But so this is something good for people to know. Like, what if you found out you had to have surgery in 2 days? If I found out I had to have surgery in 2 days, I'd say, please get me on the cell saver system, right? That's called auto transfusion. That's where they simply recycle the blood that they're using for the surgery. That's
Oh.
Open heart surgery
So it's
would
your
be a
blood.
common one where they could do that.
So it's your blood.
It's your own blood. It's nothing safer than your own blood, right? It's already in
Right,
your system.
right.
And the thing is, though, hospitals do not upfront offer that. Okay.
Oh.
It's, from my understanding, it's less financially remunerative than
Oh.
just taking blood off the shelf. And it
Hmm.
requires, it requires scheduling a machine. And
Right.
now the nurse that's there that is responsible for transfusions is just as capable in operating the machine. So it's not a big ask to get this,
Huh.
but it won't be offered.
Okay.
But that's what anybody can do. The only cases that, well, there's certainly, it doesn't work for every surgery. For example, if you have cancer, right? They don't want to
Right.
recirculate the blood where,
Oh, right,
there might have been cancer components in it,
right.
from the surgery itself. Obviously, if you're bleeding out from an ulcer or something, or some internal
Sure.
hemorrhaging, it can't work there. But there are plenty of cases where it could be useful for you. And so people should ask. That's what you can do in a
Right.
near emergency.
Hmm.
Pregnant mothers, Jim and I have talked a lot about this because, his field is obstetrics, right?
Right,
And
right.
so he is saying, we were hopeful that, hey, autologous donation was recently allowed, that women could do that. Mothers can do that. The Red Cross recently changed the rule that they couldn't, but now they could. But here's the thing, is that because the woman's blood levels are, she's got a lot more volume going on. So the hematocrit levels are lower, right? It's very uncommon that a woman could donate to herself. Okay. So, but what you can do, and we're recommending every woman consider this. If you're going to deliver, that's a
Right.
case where you might have an emergency. You can easily line up directed donors through family and friends, through Safe Blood. And we've done that. I had, Dr. Thorpe called me. They had a patient going in for a scheduled cesarean with a high level risk of hemorrhaging. And with a week out, no less. We only had a week's notice. Now, fortunately, it was in Missouri at a great hospital. It would process a directed donation in just 2 days.
Wow.
And so with that, since the processing only took 2 days, we were able to easily get donors to her for, 4 to 6 units, so that she had those on hand if she needed them.
Right.
And that's a great thing to do for pregnant mothers. And then I think really pregnant mothers then really become an asset to the system, because if they're getting compatible, safe blood donations
Right.
for their deliveries, and they don't need them, then much of the time this just goes back into the system. Like if you're in New York or if you're in the Southeast, directed donations just become donations for other people who need them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's some places that waste them because of policy. They just destroy it if it doesn't go to the patient who wants it.
Right.
But to my understanding is most reuse it. And so that's a real benefit to the system too. But that's something pregnant mothers should really think about. Now, what about for the rest of us, like a car accident or something?
Yeah.
There are only choices to take what's off the shelf, if we absolutely need it. And there is no protection. So that's why we had a bill in South Dakota that unfortunately didn't pass, but was just going to require the blood banks to mark whether the blood was from a mRNA vaccinated or not donor, right? And then that would be fantastic, because then a blood bank or a hospital would know what the provenance of the blood is, and somebody could request and say, hey, for me or my loved one, this patient I'm advocating for who's had this emergency, they'd like the non-vaccinated blood first if it's available.
Yeah.
And then it would be known and be able to give it. Now, that bill unfortunately didn't pass, and the blood banks are not just voluntarily doing this. So another alternative would be, if we get this testing out and widely available and at reasonable cost, which it is. Everything that I've talked to is saying it's reasonable cost, it's relatively rapid. And then what people could start demanding is, I want this blood tested before it goes into me or my loved one. because it's perfectly reasonable to want to know what the spike level
It
of a
is.
unit of blood is before it goes into you.
It absolutely is.
Yeah. And that could then begin lending to resolving this, real gap we have for emergency medicine.
Right. It totally would. That's excellent. Wow. Thank you, Clinton. That was amazing. And thank you for the updates on that. And I'm glad we had a chance to do a little deeper dive on what Dr. McCullough shared. I mean, those really great points. And I will, yeah, this is great to consider. So thank you. Any final thoughts to feel complete for today?
Yeah, well, I think we've really covered other ways people can support us. Look, you can become a donor for free, right? Absolutely. If you say, look, we don't have the budget to be a member, pay a monthly membership, but I have not received the mRNA vaccine. Yeah, our donor memberships are free. We highly value our donor members. I mean, they are the people who are available, like, Minutemen, just to run to someone else's need for no compensation for that on their own. They're just doing that because of their commitment to their fellow citizens and to blood freedom and health safety. Other ways people can help us. Hey, just follow us on X. We're at safe_3. At safe_blood3 on X, and just circulating our posts help gets word out. We have a Substack now. If you become a paid member of the Substack, that also comes with a complimentary full membership to Safe Blood. I'm the primary author on the Substack. In fact, this interview is excellent. We'll be sure to, in a few days, have that up as a Substack, going over these very issues that were so pivotally brought up on your earlier interview with Dr. McCullough.
Yeah, I could splice those two together. Here's Peter and here's Clinton.
We could get creative with the editing, right?
That'd be great. Excellent. Well, good. So this is on X, and then I have all these links for you in the chat. And great. Well, thank you. Any other final thoughts, Clinton?
No, I just really appreciate you having me on again, Michael.
Always a pleasure.
I always enjoy our conversations, and I always come away like, I don't know, just very enthused about how interesting it is when we get together to talk.
Well, you're doing important work, and thank you. And thanks for Safe Blood. And also in our archive, a couple of things to follow on to what Dr. Ohlers had shared. We've got an epic, including today with Dr. Ohlers. We have a really epic slate of guests coming in. We're booked out through end of July, and I just wanted to highlight a couple of folks who Clinton mentioned, and including, let's see, here you'll see Dr. James Thorpe will be on in July. And then also, where did he go? Where did she go? She's coming up. Oh, yeah, Julie Threet is coming up the week before. So we have, and then, just some remarkable folks. Next week, let's see, this is the 23rd. Yeah, so Laura Desmarais, very famous, kind of a, incredible health freedom warrior, is going to be talking about COVID injections. Charles Covess, Scott Sharo.
Laura was so, I don't mean to interrupt you, Michael,
No,
but Laura
please
was so instrumental in getting this legislation passed in Idaho. I mean, she's an absolute warrior. Her story is just fascinating. Yeah, she'll be an amazing guest.
So that's
important person for people to know about and support.
Yes, for sure. Now Idaho is a template. We have precedent now. And then Scott Sharo is coming back on the show with his new book, Is the Government Legally Killing Us? After his daughter was murdered in the hospital, and a whole raft of issues there. And then the senior editor at Epoch Times, Jan Jekielek, is coming on, which is really amazing. He has a new book called Killed to Order on forced organ harvesting in China. Dr. Susan Downs coming to us from Silicon Valley Health Institute. By the way, I'll be speaking on their show this week on Wednesday, Silicon Valley Health Institute. So SHVG. So you'll find that link right here. and that will also be to the show. Dee Dee Hoover, Paul Thomas's partner, is going to be talking about children's mental health. William Simpson, a little different topic for us, going to be talking about wild horses and wildfire prevention. Lynn Scott Hagerman, I was just on her show last week, very massive podcast. She is a MK Ultra survivor and now speaking on a range of topics related to health freedom. We talked about vaccines on her show. One of my graduates, Michael Priestman. Richard Boshart, who you may have seen on Tucker Carlson, is coming to us in June. Dr. Arthur Brower is a neurologist, I believe. He's going to be talking about vaccine toxicity. Alex Mayer, wonderful lady, another powerhouse in California, the Free Now Foundation. And then we have Julie Threet, July 13th, James Thorpe, July 20th, and Curtis Koss. We're just about to confirm a few more guests in August. And then at any time, with literally no notice, we may be blessed with the return of Dr. Ohlers as the second guest on any of these shows. Anytime he has something to share, anytime Clinton, you're like, hey, let's talk about this, just come on as the second guest anytime. You're always welcome. Doors always open.
Yeah. Well,
as
thank you.
My mom used to say at dinner time, she always wanted us to invite friends. She said, there's always room for one more.
Yeah.
That's what she
well,
said.
Well, thank you. Well, hey, have you ever had Tom Haviland on the show?
No, if you could connect us by email.
Yeah, he's amazing. I'll connect you. Yeah, I know Tom well, and he just engaged, interacted with a funeral home director out of Pennsylvania. I think not just a director, but somebody higher up in the whole association.
Wow.
And he's saying that they've been seeing 30 to 40% of cadavers with these long clots. So, and he could tell you more on that and make sure that that statistic is
wow,
was properly communicated. Crazy. But that was the tweet I saw about his interview. So now I do know that, I do know that it was as high as about at least 17%. That the majority of, these, of the funeral, when polled, the majority were saying they were seeing these, and they were seeing in about 17% of the patients. So if it's actually 30 to 40%, or at least in Pennsylvania, that's the estimate. I mean, then that's higher. But he'd be a very interesting guest. And yeah,
please connect us.
Yeah, I will. I'll connect you. And yeah, that's a great lineup. And some of these, I noticed some of these speakers will also be speaking at the World Council for Health. They're having their annual conference in Warwick, Rhode Island, just outside of Providence, at the end of the end of June. And I will, excuse me, at the end of May, last weekend of May, they were the 30th. And I'll be there for that. And then just before that, I'll be in at Myrtle Beach for Thrive in 26, also speaking there. So we're getting the word out on these issues, Michael.
That's great. Well done. And yeah, if you could connect me with those folks, the events you're speaking on, I'd love to connect with them.
Absolutely.
But that's great. Excellent. Well, Dr. Clinton Ohlers, thank you, my friend, for being with us again. Thank you for the time and for your ongoing work. This is just amazing that you're really making a huge difference in people's blood, but also legislatively, and getting the word out about what we need to know.
Great. So thank you. Thanks. Right. And you keep up your great work too. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, awesome. Well, thanks folks for hanging in there. If those of you who are still here for 3 hours, kind of a marathon show today. But thank you. I want to appreciate you with a little piano music and just a short little Bach piece for hanging in there for the whole show. Really appreciate it. And just a little Bach for you. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Please share the show page. And also, I forgot to mention, kind of important, we've got a new course starting this week on skin health. So if you go to michaelgaeta.com, click on courses, and you'll see right there at the top, Peeling Back the Layers, a deeper look at common skin conditions, starts this week on Wednesday with me, actually, followed by my good friend and master herbalist, Peeling Back the Layers this week. And then we will have a deep expose on Rockefeller medicine and the industrial model in medicine with Dr. Stephanie Thomas coming up in just a couple of weeks here at the school. So please join us for that. All right. Well, very good. Thanks, everybody. Blessings to all. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you next week. Here's a little box to a little traveling music, as they used to say on the old shows. So, and then we'll see you next week. Oh, and not to be forgotten. Oh, Bentley wanted to say hi. Here he is. He's been enjoyed the whole show, right? Did you like the whole show? He did, and he wanted to say hi. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Great show.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Okay. And there, that's going to look a little better. There we go. Oh, I'm going to try a new thing, a new feature on Zoom. I don't know how it's going to work, but we're going to try and see if it zooms in for us a little bit. We will try. Oh, there it is. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
Great show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great.